Whataburger Friday Night Stars, presented by Game On Sports, live from the Star in Frisco, Texas, and the Dallas Cowboys headquarters. Here's Kyle Yeomans, Zach Walchuk, Eric Chiafalo, and Heckma Harrison.
Week 8 of Texas high school football is here, and we are live from inside the Star in Frisco, home to the Dallas Cowboys headquarters, and this week it's home to Texas high school football. Hello, everybody. Whataburger Friday Night Stars. Glad you're with us. Kyle Yeomans, Zach Walchuk, Heckma Harrison, and filling in for Eric Chiafalo, Mr. Guy Frazier. And boys, Week 8 is here. We are just a couple weeks away from playoffs. It's almost playoff time in
crazy.
Texas.
It is.
This is flying.
This is a massive week in terms of district battles, rivalry games, seeding implications, district championship implications. This is when it starts getting really good here down the home stretch as we are knocking on the door to postseason football.
Yeah, championship time, rubber meets the road, all of those words are relative right now.
Absolutely.
You like the rubber meets the road, just kind of get down to the nitty-gritty. How many other, metaphors, Heckma-isms are we going to hear
What's
tonight?
your favorite Heckma-ism?
I got 4 hours of this, man. Okay? Don't make me use them all in the first 10 seconds.
That's fair. That's fair.
Come on.
Whenever you say it tonight, just let us know.
Okay, this is number 3 on my Heckma-isms. Coming up, number 7 on my Heckma-isms.
I will keep you updated on my isms, brother. That's for sure.
What about Guy? Guy, do you have any Frazier-isms, Uncle Fraz-isms?
I'm excited to have Fraz in the studio tonight.
I'm just kind of quirky in my own right, so I'm sure I do stuff people point out all the time.
Yeah, and we, like you mentioned, Zach, Guy not normally in studio with us, kind of filling in for Eric Chiafalo, who, by the way, is having the worst day ever.
Oh, my gosh.
We won't go too far into
Eric,
it.
our thoughts are with you, brother.
Absolutely. It has just not gone well for Eric today. And so Guy definitely stepping in, and we love having his knowledge of Texas high school football from around not only the DFW area, but the entire state to be able to pull from. So we're excited to have Guy with us this week. But we've had plenty to talk about through the first 7 weeks of the season. Now that we're in Week 8, like you said, Zach, playoff implications, district championships, and almost some teams facing their final test, one of which, Lone Star today, facing what could potentially be their final test of the season before they get into playoffs. District 5-5A Division 1, basically owned by the Rangers after they've taken down Independence and Wakeland. The Colony at home trying to kind of turn things around there, but we'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. We've got a film room session with Heckma Harrison coming up in our overtime show, by the way.
Let me guess, is it Frisco Lone Star?
It is Frisco Lone Star.
The defense,
Let me
right?
guess.
Yes, talking defense.
Let me guess.
Either way, I'm excited, but that's his baby, the Frisco Lone Star defense.
You know it. I got him in the incubator right now, man. That's another ism. Ding.
Oh.
That's not the
Number
top
2?
one, though. He hasn't said it yet.
No, that was not even in the top 10. He didn't give a number
That's
there.
pretty good. That's pretty impressive. Let's go into some of these Thursday final scores, though. We'll start things off with Frisco Reedy and Denton Braswell at the 7-5A level. And Denton Braswell, kind of a surprise this season in that district, kind of winning some ball games for a program that has not seen a ton of winning. Well, they take another one last night, an emphatic win, 37-7, over 300 yards of total offense from Braswell, and kind of a dominant win, but it mostly came on the ground last night.
It did, and that's surprising because Grayson Thompson, their quarterback, has been so phenomenal this year, putting up all kinds of buku numbers. But this is win number 4 in a row for Denton Braswell, and they are one of the stories of this season, a 30-point win. As you see there, they opened the game, 14-play drive, just ran it right down Reedy's throat, but their defense really carried them in this one. You know, they were allowing 34 points per game entering their game against Reedy last night, and they just held the Lions' offense, which isn't bad with Jalen Kitten at the helm, to 7 points. They had 5 turnovers. They held Reedy to 85 yards of offense through the first 3 quarters. It wasn't even until the fourth quarter that Reedy finally crossed midfield in this one. So for head coach Cody Moore, unbelievable win for his program, and he said it was the most complete game that Denton Braswell has played since he's been the head coach there for the past 4 years, since they've been playing varsity football at the 6A level. So, you know, for Braswell, 5 interceptions. They entered the game with 3 last night. They had 5 the entire game versus Jalen Kidna, and 228 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, 50 carries as a team. That was a sound performance for the Braswell Bengals that have now really put themselves on the inside track. They haven't quite claimed a playoff spot yet, but it would be very surprising if they didn't make program history and reach the postseason for the first time in Denton Braswell history. A really, really good year and a really good team there for the Braswell Bengals.
Yeah, Braswell is a team that we've talked about before, returning juniors now, guys, seniors, and it's an experienced squad. So the 5 interceptions is what kind of
crazy.
Because
Jalen Kitna obviously coaches son with John Kitna, who's the quarterback's coach here with the Cowboys, was the head coach with Waxahachie there in the Indians for a couple of years. So he knows how to take care of the football, but they made some changes. They're moving some receivers over to DB for Braswell. Coach Moore in that senior class doing what it takes to win, and it's paying dividends now as they're finally starting to see the turnovers in the secondary now come to fruition.
Yeah, because we've seen I'm sorry, don't mean it. Because we've seen Reedy before and seen the way that Kitna's taking care of the ball.
Almost came back to knock off Frisco.
Exactly. And so it just surprised me. That's what I wanted to ask you about. Was there anything that Braswell was doing on defense that may have confused Kitna? Because, those 5 interceptions are not.
D2 going into the season, they were looked at as a little bit of a hipster pick. If you wanted to pick someone that was kind of on the rise, it was Braswell. They were really good, I think, in 7-on-7 this past summer, had some really good skill guys. So, and Reedy was kind of new onto the scene as far as big-time winning last season in this district. So, maybe Braswell's kind of taken that spot. And that was obviously a statement win, winning by 30. I know Reedy's not really what they were last year, but they've still got some guys in Will Harbor, Kitten.
Yes.
I mean, they've still got some players on that team. So to win by 30 like that, that's an impressive win for the Braswell Bengals.
Well, and you hold Jalen Kitna to 95 yards through the air on 9 of 20 passing, and he doesn't have a score through the air as well. It's pretty impressive. I mean, that's been a guy who's kind of torched that district, no matter whether or not his teams come out on top or if he's been in a losing effort. He's usually still put up consistent numbers, and the fact that Denton Braswell was able to shut him down that way was pretty impressive. Now, talking about impressive, there was a big-time matchup last night here at the Star in Frisco in the Ford Center, just across the hallway. Frisco Independence coming off of what ends up being 2 straight losses after they get blown out by Lone Star, and then they turn around and they have to have a forfeiture due to a ineligible player. Well, they get a big district win last night against a potential playoff opponent in the Wakeland Wolverines. 34-24, Braylon Braxton and company alongside Coach Story get the job done last night.
Really impressive bounce-back performance because they got dominated by Frisco Lone Star and Braylon Braxton, and we saw firsthand that young man took a beating, and to see him come back and not only do it through the air, 27 of 39 for 237 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he also ran for a touchdown, 110 yards on the ground. And Frisco Independence, they came into this game wanting to run the football. They ran the ball 79 of their offensive snaps. So they clearly wanted to establish the run. Dwayne Orr on the ground with 109 yards rushing. We know about Keon Wafer, who just seems to be a touchdown machine. The transfer from Hebron, I believe, right, guys?
Yes.
So he had 8 catches, 71 yards, and 2 scores. So for Independence, a nice way to get that offense going after they kind of got exposed a little bit against Lone Star. But Wakeland clearly, and Heckma, you'll touch on this during your film session, just don't have the same kind of athletes.
Well, and they needed that win because you got to think they lost to Lone Star last week, but then on Thursday night, but then Friday morning they came out and had to forfeit their win from the week before to Frisco Liberty because they played an ineligible player on accident. They self-reported that they did the right thing, but technically they lost twice last week, so that really dropped them back in the district standings in the playoff picture. So, that was a huge win for them from the standpoint of just looking forward and trying to get back in that playoff picture and settle themselves right for the 5AD1 playoff race.
Well, and that's a good point because the game that they had to forfeit was to Frisco Heritage, to the Coyotes.
Yeah, Heritage.
And they play tonight against Centennial, which is a winnable game for Heritage. If Heritage were to win that game tonight and Independence would have lost last night, then Independence would have been 1-3 in district play. Heritage would have been 2-2. And with a game in hand with only 3 games left to play. So essentially, all it would take for Heritage to knock Independence out of a playoff spot would be 1 more win in district play.
Wow. So a lot on the line for the Coyotes tonight.
Well,
right in our own backyard.
That was before last night. That was before Independence won.
Independence, gotcha.
So since Independence won, they're 2-2, and they're back in the middle of things. But at the same time, Coach Dory and really the entire playing players, all the players, the entire roster for Independence is taking it as playoff start now. That was their whole thing during practice this week, is that if we're the Independence Knights, playoff start right now because we can't afford to lose another game in district play, especially one like last night against a team that's most likely going to be in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for Independence. They have probably the worst string of luck in one game than any other team in Texas right now to lose 2 in a row, and that one being to the ineligible player. Last week when I saw them play against Lone Star, my first thought was, I hope they don't take this personal, or start judging themselves based off of the loss to Lone Star, because Lone Star is going to beat everybody like that. Yeah. Braylon Braxton is a freak of nature type of athlete. What I've been able to see him do just from us being here is kind of unreal. His toys that he has, the kid that the Hebron Wafer, man, one of the fastest kids I've ever seen, and also the way that they get it done. They have this inverted wing tee or modified wing wishbone that they have, however they run it, but they really play people tough. 79 rushes last night. That tells me that they are trying to get back on and get back to what they do, and that's just run the ball down your throat and then throw it over the top with Braylon.
Yeah, and Braylon Braxton, of course, a skilled individual by himself, still just a junior, still growing into that role, but seeing how much he grew from 2018 to 2019 has to have Coach Story and company excited for 2020. Now, some of his weapons and targets, like you said, in Wafer, he's going to graduate. Then you had Zylil McMillan also on the outside for Independence.
Another
so they've got some studs overall that are making some noise. Also making noise in the 6A level. How about the South Lake Carroll Dragons? They have emerged as not only a contender, but a favorite throughout Texas high school football. I saw a tweet this week that Dave Campbell, their Texas rankings, their computer rankings, have South Lake Carroll in the state championship game playing Katy. So that just shows how much of an impact they've made, and they made an impact last night, 62-7.
And Guy, I'll lean to you here in a second because you got to see Ewers play up close and personal in their biggest game of the year against Denton Geyer.
Yep.
But this young man leading Carroll to 7 straight scoring drives in their first 7 possessions. They outscored Fossil Ridge 34-0. So they got off to an extremely quick start in that first quarter. They scored 27 seconds into the game. Ewers had a 25-yard touchdown run. He finished with 3 touchdowns. And that defense, a defense that really doesn't, names don't jump out there, but they play together. They rally to the football. They're a clean unit, pretty much giving up a shutout there, except a late first half touchdown for Fossil Ridge. But Quinn Ewers, I think with the play and the level of play that he's playing quarterback at now with South Lake Carroll, they can beat anybody. I mean, any given week, no question about it. And, Guy, you got to see him in that duel with Eli Stowers. Right. I mean, how impressive was the kid in person?
They can beat anybody?
Anybody.
So my thing with South Lake the last, 4 or 5 years has been, to get back to where South Lake wants to get, which is state championship type, days.
Well, to maybe get over the Duncanville.
Get over that hump. And, they got to have a guy at quarterback that's extremely dynamic and like a Power 5 type recruit. And they've had good guys like Ryan Agnew, who's at San Diego State now. And I can't think of the kid from last year that's at Liberty now. They were good quarterbacks. Will Bowers. Really good quarterbacks, but not to that next level. And this is the type of guy that's really dynamic, and he's just so efficient passing the ball. He's 14 of 18 last night for 205 and 3 touchdowns. So, I called you right after that game with Guy, a couple weeks ago, and he moved up my quarterback rankings. As far as Chandler, Haynes King, those guys. He's in that talk, and he's only a sophomore.
And you know how Guy feels about Haynes King, and you know how hard Haynes King can throw. And he elevated Quinn Ewers ahead of his boy Haynes King over at Longview.
And he's only a sophomore.
Slow down, Jim Shoes, for just a second. I guess my thing is this. I believe that there's the lost art of coaching. And, the coach at South Lake is amazing. He did a great job.
Young dude, too.
Yeah, young guy, but we all know his name, and he did a great job versus Geyer. I mean, everybody thought that Geyer was going to come into this game playing power football, and what did South Lake do? They punched him in the nose. Right. They essentially played their game. And so Ewers is a kid that I believe in the district that they're in, you're going to see them roll like this. The only challenge that I believe we thought they were going to see is
Geyer.
Right? And so at this point, seeing them win 62-7, but I'm not quite ready to elevate them to that point because I still believe that the guy in the people in the driver's seat, they're in Duncanville.
Well, and that's the thing is
that's
I
fair.
don't know if Quinn, if it's this year. I'm just saying if you look at big picture in the long run, Quinn might be the next guy for Southlake that really pushes them over that hump. And I mean, you look at their team from top to bottom. Like they have a good O-line this year with Addison Penn and Andre Karich.
And
going
Cade
to Texas.
Wood's coming on. That was the big question. T.J. McDaniel, who they lost to SMU, who was their star running back.
He's amazing.
Who,
T.J.
he's been
McDaniel.
good this
he's
year
doing
in year
things as a true
one.
freshman there, with the Mustangs. So Cade Wood's now kind of stepped up, taken over the mantle there as their lead dog. I think their defense is really one. I think they've got better quarterback play than they did a year ago. No disrespect to Will Bowers, but I think Quinn Ewers is special. I'm with you. Now, when he plays against a Duncanville in the postseason, we'll talk about that when we get there. But as a sophomore, you might have some lumps. That'll be a big question mark. But I think their ability now to have elite quarterback play, but they still didn't lose a running game. T.J. McDaniel was special, but Cade Wood is capable. You know what I'm saying? They still didn't lose that aspect of their team, and I think their defense is better than it was a year ago. So I'm excited for this version of Southlake Carroll to go up against a Duncanville or a big-name opponent in round 2, 3 of the postseason.
Wow. And with you saying that about their defense, they're missing their main guy.
Well, hang on now. I was about to mention that RJ was back last night, and it's the first game I've known that he's been back.
Is he dressed out for Guy?
No, he played. Yeah, but he dressed out.
He dressed out, but he didn't
played
play
last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
my buddy Mike Roach from Horns 247 was at the game and got pictures of him. He was actually playing and supposedly looked pretty well. He's making big plays, but they've got Graham Faluna too at linebackers, a Utah commit. So they've got some guys on defense. I don't know. This Southlake team's a team to watch. Come that middle, section of the playoffs, they might,
Yeah, I don't count. I'm not counting them. I'm not counting them out.
No, but I think
guys.
you're right in terms of saying, hey, let's not necessarily anoint them over at Duncanville. I'm not doing that. But I think maybe have a better opportunity. They're built more to compete with the Duncanville than they were last season.
Yes.
I think absolutely that's the case. And you've seen that with the games that they've played against the Denton Geyer team, who we thought was probably better than the Denton Geyer team they beat last year that came down to the final possession. Well, they took care of business this year against Geyer in what was a good football game, but still one that was ultimately dominated by the Dragons. Now, talking about a team that has been really good this year, going back to the 4A level. Last night, 8 4A Division I, kind of a crucial matchup in district play. Hillcrest came into that ball game, then Panthers 6-1, and they had won. They were 5-0 to start the season. Carter, on the other hand, Dallas Carter, of course, you know how the Cowboys are, the history that is around that program. Well, they come out and they're 4-2. Well, Dallas Carter puts it on Hillcrest in a 33-0 final score in that football game. They did not allow 40 yards total in the ball game, including -8 yards on the ground and only 47 through the air. 4 first downs total for the Panthers as the Carter Cowboys defense just dominated last night.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thought that the 86 Carter Cowboys would show up last night. Jesse Armstead and everybody else. I mean, but Hillcrest coming into this game 6-1. Toast of the town. Everybody thinking that they're going to, basically run the table in this district, and go far into the playoffs. But Carter came out last night and completely smacked them.
Well, and I think Hillcrest is a solid team, but they've played 2 better teams in the last 3 weeks. They had North Dallas last week, but the previous week before that, they played Carrollton Ranchview, who's got Michael Henderson. They've got some dudes on that team, and them and Carter are probably their 2 best. Tests that they've gotten this year, and they've kind of fallen short. So I think Hillcrest is probably a solid team, but I think they've shown that there's a little bit better in that district so far. And, I actually see Dallas Carter next week on Friday. I'm excited to watch Bernard Wright, their defensive lineman that's got
Bernard Wright
in the
is
SEC looking at
huge, man.
So Carter's got some dudes, too.
Exactly. Jamarian Jones, 249 yards rushing last night. He put on a show. It wasn't even close.
Yeah, not at all. And overall, just an impressive win for Carter that kind of came, you can say it came out of nowhere, but if you're Hillcrest, you're all of a sudden kind of shell-shocked. You've lost 2 of your last 3 games going into the meat of district play, and you've, like you said, Guy, dropped the 2 games against probably the best opponents that you've played thus far. Is this just a Hillcrest team that we were a little bit too high on, or is this a Carter team that's going to surprise some people toward the last part of the season?
I think the Panthers are a great story, and we're all suckers for a good story. Nobody saw Hillcrest really being relevant this year. For them to have started the season 4-5-0, whatever it was, and now you're going up against that blue blood, the Carter. Similar to a Summit versus Cedar Hill last week. Summit was one of those high flavor of the week kind of teams, and people were looking at Cedar Hill. Maybe Cedar Hill's not as good this year. Same kind of thing. Dallas Carter, okay. Maybe Hillcrest, the new flavor of the week, has a chance to knock off the blue blood. in Dallas Carter, but the Carter Cowboys quickly put Hillcrest in their place. But defensively, they ran the football beautifully, but to hold Hillcrest to -8 yards rushing, that Carter D came to play. And the Carter Cowboys, look at that district right now. I think they're in pristine shape to not only make the playoffs, but to win a district championship.
Now, Guy, you know the running back from Hillcrest.
I know of him. I haven't seen him play, but
So Hillcrest has a guy that everyone's talking about. I'm trying to get his name.
Mekhi Bird.
That guy. Thank you. Mekhi Bird.
I'm here to help you.
Thank you. I know, man. And I appreciate that.
All right, Love Fast. Let's get to your point.
It starts early.
I love you.
Let's get to the point.
But the thing is, they were 6-0. I mean, they were 6-0 going into that Ranchview game, and then the talent you start seeing like, whoa, wait a minute, you got a chance to knock these guys off, and now Carter comes in and shows out. But again, -8 yards rushing.
That's impressive.
Well, it's
-8. No one was doesn't matter how good they were or how fluffed up the numbers were. No one saw Hillcrest coming into this game going -8.
Wrap it up on this one a little bit. Just that's what district later on in the season is good for. Is you kind of start to see who's legit and not necessarily sometimes who's not. I don't think Hillcrest is not legit, but their wins have been a little bit of a softer schedule. So now that they're playing some of the tougher teams, it's a little bit of a litmus test and kind of can tell us what we're going to see in the playoffs. And I think Carter and Ranchview and Wilmer Hutchins is in that district as well.
That's true.
So there's some tough teams in that district. It's an interesting 4A district that mixes a little bit of the city teams with the country teams as well. So
now that we've gone through the 4 highlighted games from Thursday night, I want to shift gears a little bit. And I want to give some spotlight to a team that has not had a ton of spotlight over the last couple of years. Have you seen the Lincoln final score from last night?
Yes, I did.
The Lincoln Ball Club
Thank you,
gets
Lord.
it done. 34-29, and our Lincoln alumnus, Mr. Heckma Harrison, can celebrate.
Thank God, man.
Isn't that beautiful?
That deserves some solo cam, don't you think?
I think it does.
That just,
There's a tear rolling
How does
down
it feel,
Heckma's face
Heckma?
currently.
It took us a long time. I didn't know. I started. You look at the schedule, you start counting, and you say, okay, we can get a win here. We can get a win here. I didn't know, but we almost gave this one up too.
Wow.
34 by 5 points. We won. Way to go, Tigers. We pulled that one off.
The Tigers get it done for Heckma Harrison.
Thank
Now,
God, man.
switching from Tigers to some
that smile.
Lobos.
Oh,
How about this? This is from last night. Tyler Tipton tweeting out his own Ice in My Veins 48-yard game winner to take down Frisco Liberty. 27-24, the final score from 48 yards out.
what a bomb.
And
That thing was good from 55.
Unfortunately for Liberty does not get their first win since 2017. The Little Elm Lobos get the job done at home, but just kind of funny seeing, hey, I hit a 48-yard game winner, so I'm going to
good
tweet
for
it
him.
out.
He can flex a little bit.
Ice in my veins.
There you
is
go.
what he's
There you
saying.
go, Tipton.
So Tipton showing a little
I
bit of
see you,
love
boy.
last night. Let's show some love to the rest of the Thursday final scores from around the DFW area. Definitely some notable ones. Denton Ryan continues to roll. Garland Lakeview Centennial 63-23, 40-point winners in that one. Louisville, they continue to roll as well. The Fighting Farmers have been impressive this season, 66-7 over Irving. What other scores from around this, other than the Lincoln score, Heckma? I know. Stands out to you.
I gotta say this, man, and this is maybe hard for me to say, but Madison.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Oh, yeah. So, Guy, you got one. I think Seagoville over Kimball is a bit of an upset.
That's an upset right there.
But you got to see Madison and Kemp in person, and you had a little funny jab, or the Madison fans did, about that Lincoln score.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about Madison a little bit because I think that's a team that we should look at come playoff time. But so a little bit of a funny story, a little bit of a jab at their Fair Park neighbors in Lincoln. So there's a Lincoln score thrown out there from the crowd, and the sideline on the Madison sideline, they hear it. And they all start kind of giggling and saying, "Oh, they're finally winning the game."
Right.
And then y'all won.
Yeah.
So they were excited for y'all, but you could tell there was a little bit of.
They haven't played yet, have they?
Yeah.
Oh, they
We
did?
have already played.
Darn it.
Yeah, but anyway.
South Dallas Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just want to throw that out there.
I just gave him a compliment.
No love lost between the two.
I just
You need to take
complimented
it
Madison.
back.
I'm not taking it back. I mean, I'm a part of the media now. I got to play this role. Good.
How'd Madison look, though? They look pretty good.
No, they look really good. The one thing that kind of stood out that they got fixed is 19 penalties for 170 yards.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So I don't know how much you can
That's a
trust them
lot.
from that standpoint, but a lot of talent, a lot of speed.
Yeah, that's something you gotta clean up, no doubt about it, if they're going to be something come playoff time. Moving on to the next page of Thursday finals, got Malakoff. How about that? 72-0. I know it's A+ Academy, but Malakoff continues to roll. Thomas Jefferson falls to Conrad. Naaman Forrest with a 35-7
Go,
win.
babe.
So both Heckmas had a victory last
Yes,
night.
we did.
That's a rare feat in the
It is.
Harrison
It
household.
This is a great weekend.
South Oak Cliff, that's my hood.
Put it in their face and make it understood.
Well,
We did it again.
Yeah, they did it again. 61-0.
Wilmer Hutch gets a nice
The
win.
Hutch, Kyle Douglas back. Too.
That's going to be a big game next week.
Getting
Carter,
Kyle Douglas back is huge.
Dallas Carter, Wilmer
Hutch.
Hutchins next week, and it's at Wilmer Hutchins. So that'll be an interesting game overall. And as far as Thursday final scores, nothing crazy surprising. Like you said, Seagoville over Kimball, a little bit of a surprise there. And then early, the rest of the ball clubs that we expected to kind of get the job done yesterday did indeed do so. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start looking at some of the Friday previews from around Week 8 of Texas high school football. We've got Doug Anderson from Texas 21's Game of the Week. He'll call in. We'll preview that Flower Mound and Hebron matchup, and we'll continue forward. It's Week 8 here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars. We'll be back in a bit.
I'm Billy Martin. I'm an Executive Vice President with North Dallas Bank and Trust. It's about authentic intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. At local banks like North Dallas, we give you personalized service that you just can't get at the big banks. Everything we do is driven by your best interest. We call it having a high YQ or U quotient.
Hey, I'm Jack. We started SeatGeek because we want fans to have a better, more transparent ticket buying experience. With SeatGeek, you can see the best deals and buy tickets, all with a price match guarantee. The only thing we can't guarantee is that your team will win. So use the code TICKETS20 at checkout for $20 off your first order.
It's game day. A day that should be spent in the living room, not the kitchen. So next game, you just worry about the score, because we've got the food covered. With hand-battered, cooked-to-order, always fresh, never, ever frozen chicken fingers, craveable cane sauce, crispy crinkle-cut fries, and jugs of freshly made tea and lemonade. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love.
Go Cowboys!
Back here from the Star in Frisco, beautiful headquarters of the Dallas Cowboys. Welcome back into the SWBC Mortgage Studios. Whataburger Friday Night Stars, Week 8 of Texas high school football, and it's time to preview some of the top matchups from around the DFW area. And we just went through some of the Thursday finals. We'll talk to Doug Anderson of Texas 21. He's on the call for tonight's Flower Mound and Hebron ball game. We'll talk to him in just a couple of moments. But right now, I do want to talk about probably one of the biggest games that we have around the area, maybe even around the state of Texas, and it's crucial specifically for District 4 6A, and that's Arlington Martin and Arlington from UTA Maverick Stadium. 7 o'clock kickoff for this one. The Colts coming off of a loss last week to Arlington. Bowie Martin, their one loss coming against Rockwall, where they were kind of boat raced by the Yellow Jackets, or in Eric Chiafalo's term, the Orange Jackets. But Martin gets now a chance to kind of prove themselves against a down Arlington team who looks to rebound this week.
Yeah, you say it properly. The loss last week to Bowie was a shock. I definitely had the Colts winning that one. But Bowie came out and they were strong, and they are making sure that everyone knows that they are a tough opponent. But the Colts, man, they have to rebound and get a win tonight. But for the Warriors, Zach Mundell, the junior quarterback, he has that offense twerking, guys. I mean, it's definitely doing its thing for the Warriors. And the Warriors also have a stingy defense.
They do.
Yeah, they have a really stingy defense, and the Warriors are a team that can win ugly. They can win.
That's how they like it.
That's how they like it. But then you switch over to the Colts. We talked about this. He isn't a laughing matter anymore. All right, Chris Sims. When the switch happened with Jahari Rogers, I think this kid has been a breath of fresh air in that offense. What he's been able to do, the numbers that he's put up: 1,300 yards, 21 TDs on the season so far. And so tonight's matchup, I mean, I believe they're both evenly matched. But I believe that Arlington, the Colts are gonna win this game. So I'm putting my pick out there already.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get more into that for the prediction games, but this should be fun. Zach Mundell is, in my opinion, just a gamer. I mean, this young man, I think he's maturing week to week as a passer. But the Arlington Colts, they do pack quite an elite offense. There's Jahari Rogers, they're playing some DB number 4 going to Florida. He was their outstanding quarterback a year ago. But Chris Sims, B.J. Rogers at running back, and Charles Brown at receiver, that's certainly going to cause a challenge for Martin's defense. But I kind of think Martin's defense is a little bit better than Bowie's was last week, and Bowie handled Arlington. Now, maybe they were able to point out some flaws. The coaching staff, Coach Peach, who's one of the best around, they went back to the drawing board and they corrected that. We'll see if they corrected it against Martin, because I think Martin has proven their keys to victory are running the football, Zach Mundell not turning it over, and he'll make some kind of magical play, whether it's with his legs or through the air, and then we're going to make sure we play elite defense. And their special teams game has also won them some football games as well. You point out that Hebron game, for instance, right. It was really all special teams. So this should be fun in a nice rivalry game between Martin and Arlington, and now a huge game since Bowie knocked off Arlington a week ago in terms of the district and where the standings will fall.
Where the standings will fall and where seeding could end up as well at the 6A level. Who's going to play what big opponent?
Right.
Going into the Region 1 or Region 2 area of the 6A level. So that's kind of interesting to look at. And I think if you're Arlington, you've got a little bit more on your plate. But it's tough to say that against an Arlington Martin squad who tried to make that comeback against Rockwall, but fell up a little bit short. I guess it was the same sort of situation, but Arlington just definitely more fresh on the mind coming into this week.
Yeah, I think that when you point out the fact that their special teams and what they did versus Hebron, like I said, they win ugly games. When you look at the stat sheet and you see that they've won by 21 points in their offensive Zach Mundell hadn't gone for crazy numbers, but they still won, and the other team, didn't have all the production that they're used to having. That's the thing about this matchup that kind of throws me off, because that on special teams the Warriors are tough, but also that on defense the Colts, with what they do, just playing cat defense. You take that cat, you got that cat, and that's what they do with Jahari Rogers, because he's a difference maker on defense.
Well, and I was at that Hebron game, so I'm totally confused on Martin, because they've shown games like the Lake Travis game where they can put up numbers, and then the night I saw them, it was strictly defense and special teams that got done, because they were up at halftime by multiple scores, but yet they had negative 30 yards of offense. So, I mean, in my opinion, they showed other ways that you can win the ball game with them, but I have no idea what to think about Mundell and some of those guys.
This will be a fun game. This is close. I mean, it's anyone's guess.
Now, do you think this is going to be an ugly game, just real quick, Heckma? You said that Martin wins
No.
ugly games. I don't think this is necessarily going to be an ugly game.
No, I think Chris Sims is a difference maker, and if you base it off of the other upper echelon quarterbacks that they've seen so far, I'm just taking Braden Locke as one of them, and just saying with that alone, that's why I give the Colts the edge.
Okay, let's. That'll be fun, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. You giving away your pick there.
I did
a little early on. Birdville at Denton. This is a Denton squad that's been up and down over the last couple of weeks. For the most part, they've been down this season, 2-4. Birdville, on the other hand, 4-2, and in District 4, 5A Division 1. You look at Birdville as one of those top echelon teams. Can they get the job done on the road against Denton? And what should be a win if you chalk it up for the Hawks?
Yeah, this is a big game for Denton High and their head coach, Billy Miller, who took over for Coach Atkinson, who's now with Flower Mound Marcus. He likes to have a word of the week every week, and fight is the word for this week, and that's one that, of course, here in the Dallas Cowboy Star.
It's all over the place here.
It is everywhere, but he said, quote, "We've got to be tired of being pushed around. We have to show people we're capable of more than what we've shown. We're encouraged by our team and potential, but we have to let it show on the film. There are people all over the place that are going to fight to win football games, and that's the attitude we have to have." So it will be a desperate Denton Broncos football team tonight against Birdville. I think this is a Birdville Hawks squad that is starting to peak at the right moment right now. They dropped a couple of games in non-district. Granted, they were to 6A competition in Keller Central and Weatherford. Weatherford's got a big game tonight against Euless Trinity, but those were also teams that could throw the football, specifically in Weatherford, a little bit. Denton High, they're much more of a running team with Connor Shelley and Terrell Coleman, although Crispin Wallace stepped up, had a solid game on the outside for them last week, so maybe Davian Guajardo and Crispin Wallace have themselves a nice little combo. But Stone Earl and Ladarius Mixon were the story last year. Stone Earl's kind of been a quiet gem this year as the hype's kind of started to fade a little bit off of Birdville, but they're undefeated within their district, and Stone Earl this year just under 1,300 yards passing, 23 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, and he's done that without his brother and Ladarius Mixon in the backfield for the majority of this year. Now, maybe Mixon's back tonight. I know Demary Walker stepped in nicely for him, but Stone Earl has proven, hey, if I got to carry the weight, I'm 4 deep at receiver. I can go ahead and make it happen for the Birdville Hawks.
Yeah, I said it last week when I had their game. And Stone Earl, I trust, because he's getting it done. He's not turning the ball over. I don't know. I mean, we hadn't heard anything about Mixon, whether it's an ankle injury, knee injury. I know last year during the playoffs he went out with a knee. We don't know.
I think it's the knee.
Well, and they need Ladarius. Like, they got to get him healthy.
Well, they need him.
He's a big part of their identity.
They may not need him for this game, but
not for tonight.
Yeah, but further, big picture-wise, definitely. But you hit the nail on the head that this is just a Denton squad that also needs to get a W.
And they're desperate need of a W, to say the least. And I don't know if this is necessarily the place you're going to get that. I mean, there are more winnable games in that district, but with the emergence of Birdville, and of course you have Denton Ryan all the way up there, it's tough to find wins in that district whenever they come across. Moving on back to the 6A level, couple 6A matchups. We'll start with Coppell and Flower Mound Marcus. This is going to be a good football game overall. Coppell, with their back against the wall. I mean, you talk about teams who need a district win. That's a team that needs one quite badly right now. They're giving up just as much as they score on offense. On defense, it's the same story. And then it's really just not come together from Coppell. They've lost close games where in the past we've said, hey, they're the Cardiac Cowboys. They get the job done in close games. That has not been the case in 2019, and it's one of the reasons why they're 2-4.
Well, I mean, they just haven't won the close games this year. But, I mean, this is a game where you've got one team who's trying to just solidify their position for the playoffs. And then you've got and Marcus, who's rattled off 5 games in a row since I saw them week 1 when they lost to Bowie. And then you got a team, in Coppell who's trying to position themselves into the playoff picture. So you've got 2 teams kind of playing for different things tonight. But it's typical 6A action in that it's really even across the board. It's a really competitive district. So I would expect another close game for Coppell. Maybe they can actually pull one out because I think it's at home tonight, correct?
Yes.
It is. Yeah. It is a home game for Marcus.
It's a home game for Marcus.
Yeah. Okay. And for one of the reasons that they've been so successful is really Grant Nussmeier and Garrett Nussmeier, excuse me, what he's been able to do from the quarterback spot for Flower Mound Marcus. I mean, he's been absolutely incredible, Zach.
And Ty Edwards on the ground has provided some balance. But no question, I think when you look at Nussmeier, he's another quarterback within this area. Junior seems like he's really kind of coming into his own. Now that they've gotten into district play, this is another team. They're peaking at the right time. And they held Hebron, who's got some talent on that offensive side of the football, to just 14 points last week. I think really you look at the most complete team within this district. Marcus has a chance to say, hey, that's us right now. When you look at the balance in which they can run the football, they've got a legitimate quarterback who's got good talent with his arm and can run a pro-style offense, but then their defense is really coming to its own right now.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger parts is their defense and what they're doing. But their running back last week, Tyson Edwards, he went out with an injury, so I don't know if he's healthy for this game. But he has been
a good point, and I don't think he is.
Yeah,
I think it seemed like a serious injury.
Really, well, he's been a big part of the success of Nussmeier because look, when he gets in a jam, he can turn around and hand the ball off, and this kid has been putting up a ton of production.
A ton of protection.
And speaking of their defense, real quick, one kid that kind of stood out to me in the summer and when I saw them week one with those highlights was Ethan Barr, the Tulane commit.
Right.
He's one of our Friday night stars, slept on 60 kids, and 6'3", 220. He's got like 4'6", 4'7", 40 speed. So he's a big kid that moves well. So they've got some guys on defense as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to rattle off Nussmeier's stat line. 121 for 189 passing with almost 1,600 yards, 17 touchdowns. So he's right up there in terms of guys who have put up the production and also the leadership of being able to win football games for his ball club, and that's something that you kind of gotta look at in terms of what Garrett Nussmeier has done for Flower Mound Marcus. We're going to skip Flower Mound and Hebron just for a split second because we're trying to get Doug Anderson on the phone from Texas 21. Let's go to Frisco Heritage and Frisco Centennial. This is our showdown at the Star tonight. 7 o'clock kick as always, just across the hallway. We kind of alluded to this game earlier, talking about Independence having to forfeit their game to Heritage due to an ineligible backup offensive lineman who played in the second half of that blowout win. However, Heritage now with 2 wins on the season. Centennial rattled off their first win of their campaign against Liberty last week. This kind of turns into a little bit of a showdown where Heritage could still keep themselves into position to maybe challenge Independence come playoff time. And overall, this is just kind of a game that sneakily is on the radar because of the forfeit in District 5-5A. And we'll have live updates from this game throughout the night here on Friday Night Stars. Sticking with Frisco, let's go to Frisco Lone Star and the Colony. Of course, Frisco Lone Star, we're going to dive into them in our overtime show with another Heckma Harrison film room. But, man, the Lone Star Rangers are just dominating people, and it's on both sides of the football.
Their defense is unbelievable, and I know that Heckman will have something to show us all. That's a must tune in when you have him break down that Frisco Lone Star D. But this is specifically a game that Lone Star has had circled since last year when the Colony pulled off an improbable victory. What was a muddy, rainy,
monsoon
kind of disgusting field type
field
game
was faded. There. It was
you couldn't even tell where the end zone was, but it was a hook and ladder on the final play. Miles Price and Keith Miller hooking up for the Colony, and they went on to knock off Lone Star. And look, I love the Colony football team this year. I think that their senior group is prime to try and finally make some playoff noise, something that the Colony has not really done in their program's history. Undefeated right now, but you see Garrett Rangel here. He's the difference maker for Lone Star from a year ago when the Colony was able to beat him. It used to be you take away 18 right there, Marvin Mims. You take him out of action. Who else is going to step up for Lone Star? Now you've got a plethora of talent, 2 good running backs that can get it done, and Rangel is spreading the wealth. But this has either the potential to be a shootout or it'll be a runaway for Lone Star. But the Colony are one of those few teams, especially within this district, when you look at Mikey Harrington at quarterback and then the trio of Miles Price, who's going to Texas Tech, a true athlete, one of the premier players in our area, along with Keith Miller, who's going to Kansas, and Christian Gonzalez, who's going to Purdue. He also plays some DB. They've got the talent and the skill players to go toe-for-toe with Frisco Lone Star. So aside from their Highland Park matchup, this will probably be one of the toughest tests for Lone Star's defense that they'll have until they make it into the postseason.
Well, and we thought Independence last week for against Lone Star for this district might have been their top offensive threat. I mean, you look at Braylon Braxton and you look at what they were able to do before the Lone Star game, and the Lone Star just shut them down. Now, if I agree with you completely, I think if Lone Star is going to lose in the regular season, if they're going to lose a district game, it's going to be because of a shootout. And it's going to be because, hey, one team just scored more than Lone Star did, even though it's against the defense. But I think that defense is really kind of the difference maker this year, and it's one of the reasons they've been so dominant.
Well, and the Colony can't afford to come out and play with their food in this game because, throughout the season, like the Frisco-Reedy game, they dominate. But that win hasn't aged as well. But you look at some of their other wins, they've let teams kind of hang around. You can't do that with Lone Star tonight.
And their defense has struggled.
And their defense has let up a lot of points at times. So if you think you can get away with that tonight, you're mistaken.
Absolutely.
But, one matchup I want to watch is, you mentioned Chris Gonzalez. He plays receiver for the Colony, but he actually projects as like a corner or safety. He's real skilled on that, so he can play any spot, nickel. But he'll probably be matched up with Marvin tonight, so that's a really key matchup. And if you're a recruiting fan, that's something fun to watch, is Chris and Marvin going up at it.
Stanford versus Purdue.
Exactly. Smart schools, too. Yeah.
Is Chris going to be by himself? Is he going to be on Chris again Island?
I would think you got to give him a shot.
Start. Yeah, they'll probably start leaving him
There's
out
no
there by
way.
himself.
There's no way they will.
Super talented kid.
You know what? He'd be going to Florida State, Miami.
Well, he could have. He chose Purdue.
Look, all I'm saying to you is
Alabama offered him law school.
Okay. Put him by himself over there on the island with Marvin.
It's a test. It's a good test for both of them.
It's going to be a test, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a test that he's going to get that big. I used to give a bunch of these, the flag with the circle.
Well, you don't have the unbiased aspect.
I'm about to say.
No, but the thing is,
the leader of the Lone Star fan club, Heckma Harrison, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. He is the Capitan.
Yeah, but the thing is, if I'm going to be the leader of a fans club, it's going to be because you're good, and it's because Lone Star is really good. The other part about this is, and giving respect to this guy, Mouse Price is cat quick.
He's unreal.
He really is. And so this guy, the Texas Tech commit, and Quint Bright, Texas Tech is putting together
him and Quint are very similar.
They are putting a track team together. Yeah. You talk about fast in Lubbock, guns up. All of my money went to Lubbock. Got a daughter graduated from Texas Tech. But either way, I just feel like, for the Colony, for Lone Star, this is their revenge tour. Yeah. They started with Highland Park in a win that they thought they should have got last year. And this one specifically, because of that hook and ladder and the last-minute loss, they literally got beat on soccer field, baseball field. They gotta get this.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
They gotta get this. And you talk about a shootout. There's nothing that's going to be a shootout about this game. That Lone Star defense is going to shut them down. And when you look at Torrin Pittman, this kid's future is brighter than the highlighter. Let's go.
Oh man, he is extremely bright.
Hey. That's another Heckma.
I love it.
Brighter than a highlight. That's number one in the clubhouse for me,
I like that. That was really good.
Off the tongue, too.
Another number one in the clubhouse, and somebody that we love talking to on a week-by-week basis, Doug Anderson, voice of Texas 21's Game of the Week. And tonight, Dougie, you're on the call for Flower Mound and Hebron on Texas 21. That's going to be quite the football game. What is one of the things that you're looking forward to the most when looking at these two squads about to go at it tonight?
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun one. And I think, it might be just a little bit easy of an answer, but I really am looking forward to the quarterback matchup between these two teams because you have two guys who are among the best in the Metroplex at what they do, but they do completely different things. Carson Harris, the quarterback for Hebron, is a dual threat. He comes in with almost 900 yards passing, but also 400 yards rushing. He went for 1,500 passing, 1,000 yards rushing last year, 15 TDs on the ground, 14 through the air. But then on the other side of the ball, Blake Short for Flower Mound is a pure passer. He comes in with 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, only one interception. And both these guys are, the guys that lead their offense, obviously. There are some other weapons that we will talk about, but that quarterback matchup, whoever leads their team the best, I think that's got the inside track to win this pivotal District 6-6-8 game.
Hey, Doug, Heckma Harrison here. Man, love your broadcast, man, on 21. I want to ask you about the Flower Mound coach and just the job that he's doing with the Jaguars. This is a well-coached team. They don't make a lot of mistakes and are self-inflicted wounds. What is your opinion about these, Coach Browser?
really impressed with. And you're talking about the Flower Mound coach, Brian Basil,
exactly.
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Really impressed with Brian Basil. I had a chance to visit with him this week, and you ask him one question, "Hey, tell me about your offense," and 15 minutes later, he's still telling you about his offense. And so you get a wealth of information from the guy, but he loves his players. He knows them intimately, each and every one of them, knows their strengths and weaknesses, and has really done a good job of not only him, but his staff getting really down on the ground with these guys and knowing what makes them tick, being able to relate with them. And he has really turned this program around. When you look at the last 10 years of this program, their last playoff appearance was 2010, and they've had some one-win seasons, some two-win seasons mixed in there. But last year they went undefeated in district play, made the playoffs, and this year they're on track for another big season. So he's really done a nice job with the turnaround.
Doug, Zach Wolchuk here with you. You hear that voice and you just think high school football, my
perfect,
friend. Big fan, always have been. You do a fantastic job. And with Hebron, I don't know what to think about the Hawks because I do love Carson Harris, and I think when you look at his dual threat ability, and he's the team's leading rusher as well. But special teams has been a bugaboo for Hebron this year. Defensively, I have some question marks there. We know Darius Snow is outstanding, their safety that's headed to Michigan State. But when you look at Hebron defensively and their second-level talent outside of Carson Harris, do they have enough on the offensive side of the football to keep up with Flower Mound that's really, really deep? When you look at Pierce Hudgens, they have a plethora of wide receivers on the outside for Blake Short. I just think offensively, Flower Mound might be a little too much for Hebron in this one.
Well, you bring up some really good points because Brian Brazel, the coach of Hebron, even mentioned this week, the special teams is what has really kind of caused us, being 4-2, 2-1 in the district. We could be better than that if we hadn't had some special teams mistakes, maybe some miscues, on the defensive side of the football. But he likes the way the defense plays. It starts up front with their front three, Jordan Haney, Jeremiah Simon, Exodus Bryant. Those guys are excellent players, especially Haney, who has, 18 pressures and 5 sacks so far this year. Those guys need to get the job done in front of Snow so that he can do what he does best, try to ball hawk and try to knock down passes. On the other side of the ball, offensively, I think it comes down to what their offensive line can do. They are not a big offensive line. They probably average around 235, but they need to get some push off the ball and allow Harris to find some receivers like Nick Frazier, who's done a nice job this year. But also, you've got two really nice backs in the backfield in Isaiah Broadway, a guy who's been Big 12 offered as a sophomore, and Jalen Lott. Those guys need to kind of step up and make their presence felt, I think, tonight if they're going to keep up with what Flower Mound can do.
The great Doug Anderson, Texas 21 High School Game of the Week. You can catch that broadcast 10:30 tonight. Have them up on the TV, have us up on the laptop or the iPad or whatever's sitting in your lap, and then you can watch Doug call that game, Flower Mound at Hebron, and then you can watch it again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. on the Texas 21 High School Game of the Week. Doug, thanks again for joining us. Have a great call tonight. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Hey, thank you so much, and really, really appreciate what you guys are doing. A great venue and a great new format to try and expand the exposure of high school football in Texas. You guys keep up the good work.
Well, we really appreciate it, Doug, and we love what you're doing as well. Can't wait to watch that broadcast tomorrow. Like you said, the voice of Doug Anderson just speaks Texas high school football, and we love having him on the show.
He's outstanding. I think he makes some great points when it comes to Hebron. And really, I've been underwhelmed, quite frankly, with the performance of their running backs when it comes to Isaiah Broadway and Jalen Lott. I don't think there's any reason why Carson Harris should be leading this team in rushing. I know Carson Harris is a special player, but when you've got two backs like that, I don't think they've quite played up to their potential. Now, some of that might have to do with their undersized offensive line and not opening up enough running room. But when you have the speed that both those backs have, get them out in space and let them play. I think that's the challenge. When you're playing against an elite offense like Flower Mound, and it might be a track meet, what does his offensive coaching staff do to try and put those skilled players in the best position to succeed and just get the ball in their hands and let them make plays?
Yeah, Isaiah Broadway, again, the kid last year that had a big year for the Hawks. It's surprising to see Chris Harris, like you said, being their leading running back. But their offensive line, that's the telltale sign. Those guys are back there running for their life. Jaden Lott and Isaiah Broadway, you want to get them on the outside. The best way to get them in the game is just through the passing game at this point. But Flower Mound is that team that, it was all good just a week ago, right? We were talking about them. They were high on the horse, and they couldn't do any wrong, but they lose to Prosper, and now all of a sudden everybody stops talking about them. I still see them the same way that I did before. I think Pierce Hudgens is a dual threat at running back and receiver. He has a lot of that E.J. Smithism to him, and so he can do it both ways. But short, I mean. You talk about the poster child for consistency, 1,700 yards, 19 touchdowns on the season. And so I don't see any reason why Flower Mound wouldn't win this game, because you know that they're going to play together. They're not going to suffer any self-inflicted wounds. They play defense together as well. They're a bunch of cats out there. You don't have one guy that you can point to say that he's the stud that makes this thing go. But at the same time, I expect for them to win this game tonight.
Well, and it's interesting you brought up how they use some of their skill guys on Hebron's side of the ball. And, when I watched Hebron the night against Martin, Jalen was actually at slot a lot for Jalen Lott. So I think they use him in multiple ways because he's a 6'2", he's a taller back. So I think they try to get their guys in different situations to get them out in space. But, I mean, you're right that Carson Harris shouldn't be the guy leading the way on that, standpoint from a rushing angle. But, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a good game.
It is going to be a really good game, and I do want to preview one more game before we get to hour number 2 here of Friday Night Stars. By the way, interview part 2 of Heckma Harrison's Coach Speak with Joe Willis comes up on the other side of our break. But first, I do want to get into Jesuit on the road against Allen. This is a Jesuit squad that surprised Prosper last week in what was a magnificent football game for the Jesuit Rangers. But this week, they've got a chance to try and do something special against the Allen Eagles, and we got a chance to catch up with Allen and kind of see how important this game is actually for the Eagles to prove themselves a little bit here.
It is a great something that in the past that all our players take pride in, the commitment, the dedication, the effort that goes into playing here at Allen.
It takes a lot of effort, but going to Allen, you know that the community kind of expects you to be where we are, and we can't let them down.
I think when you come play at Allen, it's expected that it's state or bust here. No one's going to remember somebody that doesn't put a state championship right up there, and so that's the goal here always. It's tradition.
Yeah, that's definitely momentum we want to try to carry from the Prosper game into this game Friday night and continue that momentum throughout the year.
Prosper, they were number 1 in the district. Everybody was doubting us, and we were there to prove a point. And so, like every week, we're there to prove a point. So let's see what we were trying to see what we could do this week.
Coach Hickman has been talking about all week. Yeah, it's a big game, but it's just another game. So we're going to focus on us, do what we can do, control what we can control.
I think we're sort of peaking right now at the right time, and we want to keep where we're at, how intensity-wise.
And then looking at really just kind of the way that both of those sides are talking about it. Of course, if you're Allen, you've got a 58-game home winning streak, and you're saying, hey, we're Allen. We've got to win state championships. That's our expectation. If you're Jesuit, you're kind of in shock the world mode a little bit. Going into this ball game, it's kind of interesting seeing the contrasting mindset between the two squads and what really is going to be a pretty solid football game. And I'm interested to see in what Jesuit has to bring to the table tonight against the Eagles.
Well, it's a Jesuit team that is undefeated with E.J. Smith back in the lineup. They've won 4 in a row, and they are coming off that massive win, 41-14 over Prosper last week. I think the bigger story in that one was how well their defense played, and that was the Achilles heel to the Jesuit Rangers all last season that held them back. Their defense forced 4 turnovers in the win over Prosper, 3 of them being interceptions, and they're going to have to do much of the same if they want a chance to go on the road and knock off Allen, who's going for their 14th straight district championship. And if they get that win here tonight over Jesuit, they look like they are in the driver's seat without question to win District 9-6A. Yet again, Rance Holman has been pretty darn good through the air, over 1,000 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And with the loss of E.J. Smith, it allowed Jake Taylor to step up at running back, who's got just under 550 yards and 3 touchdowns for Jesuit as well. So now you're able to use E.J. Smith and Jake Taylor on the field together at the same time. And E.J. Smith, who a lot of people say is maybe a better receiving threat than he is even a pure running back. But the fact that he's I don't know, maybe the greatest running back of all time. Emmitt Smith's son has a little something to do with him wearing that deuce and playing the running back position. But that should be something that I'm sure Jesuit will look to do. Get E.J. Smith out there at wide receiver. Use Wyatt Garrett, who's their big 6'5" wide receiver on the outside, and try and push the ball downfield with Rance Holman to try and score some points against an Allen secondary where if you have to point out one weakness, it's been that secondary this year. Now, offensively, we know Allen, Raylan Sharp at quarterback, this changes their entire team. This is a kid that's lightning quick, but he's proven he can do it through the air as well. And they've got a plethora of really good running backs back there, led by Kelvin Manning, along with Jordan Johnson. But I think the line of scrimmage battle with Jesuit's big offensive line, led by the SMU commit and the coach's son, Branson Hickman there, at center against a really senior-laden group of the defensive line of Allen, that right there is going to be the battle to watch inside the trenches. How well can Allen dominate the line of scrimmage? Because that's what really had them bully Prosper last week.
Yeah, well, we're going to see. And I think that Jesuit has as good a team as any team that we've seen against Allen at this point. We've been waiting on the Prosper matchup, but this may be the one that we need to be talking about. Man, the GOAT has a son that's really good. Emmett, the GOAT, has a son that's really good. I can't call him a baby goat, but either way, wherever I'm going with that.
That's what we call him. That's fine. Why not? Baby goat.
Baby goat. So the GOAT has a baby goat, right? And this kid, number 22, E.J. Smith, is amazing. We didn't know what was going on at the beginning of the year, and we found out that the kid had a high ankle sprain and he couldn't play. Those are all the things that the injury made everyone else step their game up. We now know that they have a quarterback in Rance Holman that can get the job done. E.J. Smith is going to be a big part of this game tonight, and I think that the one question mark that when we look at Allen is their defense, and you point out the fact that Jesuit has an offensive line that can take it to him. Guys, we may want to circle this one tonight because we may have someone on upset alert.
Ooh.
Are you going to put the call?
If this were a pick'em game, Heckma, would you take Jesuit?
No.
Okay.
I was about to say that's
I would love it if you did.
That'd be awesome.
I would like to see Jesuit make this a competitive football game, though. I don't expect Jesuit to win, but I think it would be quite a statement if they could go ahead, much like Coppell did. Now, I understand that there was no Raylan Sharp, which is the true difference maker. If he goes down, Allen is very beatable. Mm-hmm. But with him in the lineup, if Jesuit can keep this maybe a one-possession game, I'd be extremely impressed.
Well, you know
go ahead.
I was going to say, well, you know who thinks they can win? Jesuit. Yeah. Especially after last week. I mean, they're coming off a high of beating Prosper, a team that we were saying, hey, could they beat Allen? Well, Jesuit dominated Prosper last week.
Well, and it was at home, though, which, high school football, that can be kind of up in the air, what you think as far as home field advantage. But Allen Eagles Stadium is a tough place to go to. So, one, they got Prosper, at home last week. Now they got to go on the road. But, how much are they living still in Week 7 in that win? They seem pretty level-headed there when they're being interviewed. But you got to think about that from top to bottom with the whole team. And then I think it's obvious that they go as far as E.J. Smith goes. So they're going to need him to have, like 4 touchdowns last week, I think. They're going to need him to do that again this week. And
maybe more.
And maybe more. I think he's obviously the sauce, and I don't think it's any secret sauce. He is their sauce. So, I mean, if they can keep it within 2 possessions or something like that, that's, I think, still pretty impressive. And, I think it's Allen, Prosper, Jesuit right up there at the top of that district.
I mean, when was the last time that you could say that a team really challenged Allen to win at Allen? Probably,
in district play?
Yeah, probably a long time.
It hasn't happened within that district.
It's been a long, long time.
Well, it's time.
Challenged.
Maybe it's time. Maybe it is time. It's time for us to take a break also. So we're going to do that right now. When we come back, we're going to hear from Heckma Harrison talking with Joe Willis, the head coach of Colleyville Heritage. It's part 2 of our Coach Speak series with Joe Willis. You can hear that interview coming up on the other side of the break. This is Whataburger Friday Night Stars.
Billy Martin. I'm an Executive Vice President with North Dallas Bank and Trust. It's about authentic intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. At local banks like North Dallas, we give you personalized service that you just can't get at the big banks. Everything we do is driven by your best interest. We call it having a high YQ or U quotient.
It's in all of us, and we won't hold it back. Not one little bit. Nope, we embrace it, letting it fuel our passions, pushing us deeper than we thought possible and keeping us curious. It's what sets us apart from the herd. It's how we come up with the ideas that make people say, why didn't I think of that? See, when you nurture the creativity and passion that's in all of us, you'll learn nothing is out of reach.
Ashley Home Store, the #1 furniture and mattress store in America. We have all the major mattress brands at a guaranteed low price. Plus, we have furniture for every room in the house and decorator accessories to make it yours. With multiple locations, personalized service from knowledgeable associates, and convenient finance plans to fit your budget. Ashley Home Store, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys. This is home.
Days are built on mornings, and Whataburger is built on burgers. Mornings, burgers. Morning burgers? Yeah, all right. Good thing there's a burger made just for breakfast, topped with breakfast. Good thing there's the new limited time breakfast burger at Whataburger.
Back here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars. It's week 8 of the Texas high school football season, and we have a ton of games to get to, but one game that we kind of talked about last week, Colleyville Heritage and the Panthers, a program headed up by Joe Willis with a ton of new facilities and definitely some expectations with Colleyville Heritage. Heckma Harrison got an opportunity to sit down with Coach Joe Willis in their brand new indoor facility a couple months ago, and we got a chance to sit down and talk with the head man of Colleyville Heritage. Take a look.
Now, one of the questions that I always ask to any coach is, in your opinion, what makes Texas high school football so unique from other places in the country?
Well, I think there's several things, but one I'd already mentioned. You don't find this across the country where you get a community that gets to go to one place and sit together on a Friday night and really celebrate their greatest resource, which is their young people. And again, it's across the board. It's the football that's played on the field. It's the halftime shows. It's what's going on the sideline. It's the communion that happens up in the stands. That's unique to Texas. And, people come into Texas and they say, I can't believe you got this huge high school football stadium. Well, you have to have this huge high school football stadium because the community is going to assemble themselves there together, in that stadium. You got to have enough seats, for them to all be there. Right. And so I think that's one part of it, is that it is a place where people come together and they understand that community piece of it. And then I think number 2, I think the level of competition and development is really good because of the coaching that goes on and the development, especially the development from the 7th grade on, because a lot of these schools, have access to their kids in the 7th grade. Those coaches are implementing their schemes and their systems. And you have some communities where even down into the youth leagues, they're going to be running the same exact thing that they run on Friday night. They're going to call it the same thing. And so that culture, they grow up with that culture, and they develop over those years, and they're coached by good coaches too. Well, there's a lot of good things there. College coaches that come through tell me all the time that they love Texas because we still have an athletic period, which is special. We have a place where the kids can get together, and we can talk character, we can talk physical development, all those things, and do that in the spring. But we also have football, basically year-round with spring now, so they get to develop through the winter. They have a spring football session where they get to come in and see them. There's a lot of a development that's going on here as far as the football as well.
Now, I want to take a step back and look back at last season, all right? You had it tough last season. 5-6 was the record last year. Now, you played 11 road games last year. Now, I know you're the kind of guy, you're not going to give me any excuses or allow me to lead you to any excuses, but I got to ask you, how's it going to feel this year, at least having 5 home games? You'll be in your own field house, as opposed to last year always being in a different stadium.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this, our kids handling it great. And our kids' mentality last year was we weren't going to make any excuse about, being on the road. We had good stadiums to play in. We had good places to play in. We had opportunities to win. And, we play, I think, one of the toughest schedules in 5A. I really believe, like, the level of competition that we play gets us ready for our district. And sometimes, injuries will get you unready for that district competition, and that's what happened in some of those cases. But our kids never made an excuse. But as far as next year and being in the new stadium that's now been remodeled, our kids are really excited about it. We actually have 6 home games. If you look on our schedule, we'll open up with Lovejoy in the Tom Landry Classic over in Allen. So that's a home game for us. And then we'll get to play 5 at the stadium that we call home. And so that's big for our kids. That's an important deal to go out and have your territory that you defend. And we're excited about that. Again, GCISD put a lot of work into making a stadium, not just where, football players can compete, because a lot of different activities, again, go on at that stadium. And Friday night, I've always said that, when you talk about communities and community building and the culture of your community, Friday night's a great example. I mean, there's not many places you're going to get everybody sitting in those stands and cheering for the same team. And you know what? You're going to have band out there as well that's going to perform. You're going to have the cheer. You're going to have the dance teams. There's a lot of organizations that night that are all going to be there for one common cause, and it's going to be to support and represent Colleyville Heritage High School. So I'm excited about it. I know our kids are too.
Yeah, I love the new stadium and what they've done to it. When it was the old stadium, I loved it because it kind of gave you that old appeal from stadiums kind of built into the ground. But what they've done with the new stadium is is amazing. The press boxes and everything. Hey, me and my guys, we were up in there like sardines. I see that the new press box is pretty spacious. Now, I got to ask you, you're one of those coaches that I know that sets a very tough pre-game, pre-district schedule. Now with the new district that you're in, I mean, your district is nothing to, just kind of shy off from because of the stiff competition. I know that before you had the Alitos. You started out, and obviously you're starting off with Lovejoy. Talk about the mentality of that for your team, getting ready for district and also making a run into state based off of that.
Sure, no doubt about it. And I believe in that. That's the model we use in Cedar Park. We played tough non-district schedules in Cedar Park and always tried to play a 6A opponent. That type of thing is good for your kids this time of year. And you see that you've got a team like Lovejoy, who was a playoff team last year. You've got a team like South Lake Carroll with their great tradition and what they're doing over there. You got a team like Trinity with all of their tradition. It's not easy to go through off-season work and take a day off when you're looking at those opponents. And I believe that if you play the best, you get yourself ready to be the best in that district race.
All right, Coach, so I know through the week it's all about preparation, and Friday it's about executing and winning your games. Talk about Saturday and Sunday for me. What do you do on the weekend? Do you watch any of your guys that played for you in the past on those days, keeping up with them?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we definitely try to. And the weekend is a big preparation time, but it's also, I'm big on recharge your batteries, and I want our coaches to be able to do that as well. So our routine kind of works like this. We come in early on Saturday morning, and we're always going to grade the previous Friday night. Go through and give a grade representation. We'll have a team meeting. In that team meeting, we're going to talk about the 5 best plays and the 5 worst plays and kind of talk about the separation and the difference there. And then they'll go off to their individual grades and get coached up off of film, which is the best way to learn. Learn from those mistakes that you made and have the coach show you when you did the right things and how it worked. And then so after that, we're going to move on to our next opponent. We get a preview on Saturday, and then I try to get our coaches out of here by about 3 or 4 in the afternoon on Saturday.
Okay.
And so when we do go home, a lot of times it is, go home and watch those college games and try to keep up with the guys, that we've had through this program, like Reed, Harrison, Ducros, that are playing at the next level, and see how those guys are doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what my next question, you lead me into it, is the fact that you have had some dogs come through your program, some kids that have done amazing for you. Reed Harrison Ducros is one of those guys. I mean, obviously he went to Boise. Now he's at a different university. Cameron is another kid that is awesome arm. My guy, Kevon Ahmad, Caleb Murphy, he walked on at OU. That number 42, the kid that walked on at OU as
Deuce
well.
Nesbitt, yeah.
Deuce Nesbitt.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a kid that when just watching him inspired me so much because of the way that he played. He's another guy that I'm pulling for. Talk to the fact that you have a whole nother just pretty much grade of a player coming behind them. Talk about your guys that you have coming up this season.
Yeah, I mean, we've got another good group, and I mean, I love it, the fact that those guys love the game enough to go play at the next level. And you mentioned a lot of those guys. Cam Roan's back in it now. He's out of Tyler Junior College and kind of restarting his career, and we're all excited about that. Guys that were leaving as I got here, like Max Crosby, who's going to be drafted now, in this upcoming draft. I mean, that's leaving a legacy. That's playing good and then going to the next level and playing good again, leaving a legacy for the kids that are coming. So, we do have a good group of guys that are coming. Kind of starts the list with Gavin Byers, who recently committed to Baylor, left tackle, one of the more talented tackles I've ever seen. That's how the college recruiting game works. Is that if you have measurables and then you have ability and you put it on film, that becomes your resume. Those guys will come find you. You can't be missed at Colleyville Heritage. That's the other thing about it. You're right here close to the airport. We have over 100 coaches, and we had 5 head coaches this last recruiting season that showed up here on campus. So they're going to come in and they're going to see these kids that have these measurables, that have these tools, and then they're going to see hopefully how hard they work and what they're putting on film on Friday nights, and that's going to lead to the next group of guys, because there's somebody down in that middle school that's watching saying, you know what, I want to be that one day.
That's right. And the one thing about this neighborhood, and you talked about how unique it is with these kids playing together on, an elementary, but then it kind of splits up based off of where you are in the Grapevine and Colleyville area. The Battle of the Red Rail. Now, I will tell you, I didn't know anything about the Battle of the Red Rail until I got involved in your program with doing play-by-play. What a rivalry.
Yeah.
And it gets heated.
Yeah, it gets interesting too. There's some things off the field that are always kind of interesting too. But it's a neat rivalry. It's great for the community. I mean, when I got here, I didn't know much about it either. I didn't know how intense of a rivalry it was. And then you go to that game and you see the stands packed on both sides of the field. And it took me a while to figure out it is because they play together in the youth league. A lot of them play together at the middle school level, and so they all know each other so well. And anytime there's, brothers that know each other that well and they played together, there's this sense of pride that goes on the line that night. And so we always get our best effort, when we play Grapevine, and I'm sure they get their best effort when they play us. And it's been kind of a back and forth deal. They've had some great players over there, and we've had some great players here, and we've kind of split that series up over the last 4 years. But I think it gets a lot of good attention now. I think that some of the negative attention that was there in the past has kind of gone away, and now people, they want to go see what's going on the field, because there's some really talented players. I mean, we had Alan Bowman a couple of years ago. He's playing at Tech and is a standout there. And Kevon Ahmad, you mentioned earlier, who's playing at UCF now, is going to be one of their top receivers next year, from what I understand from the coaching staff. So, I mean, we've had some really, really good players playing that game, and it's a great event for our community to go out and support our schools.
Yeah, it is amazing, and I think that for a lot of years, Grapevine felt as though they've had the upper hand on you guys, and like you said, over the last couple of years, y'all have definitely closed the gap on that. Now, what I understand is Colleyville, the high school, has only been here for maybe
22 years.
22 years, and so relatively brand new as it relates to
100.
Yeah,
Grapevine's been there 100.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's an Academy spot that you'll see here in just a couple of moments, but an opportunity to kind of catch up with Joe Willis and talk about that great Grapevine rivalry that they have with Colleyville Heritage. You got a chance to kind of talk about some of the history that the Panthers have had during his short tenure there and then throughout the history of the program. But overall, lots of expectations for him, of course, coming from Cedar Park and then ending up at Colleyville Heritage. Like he said, you can't miss us at Colleyville Heritage. And there's a reason why. There's a little bit of that expectation on his plate there, Heckma.
Yeah, it's an active community. The booster clubs, parents, everyone is involved. When you say Friday Night Stars, Friday Night Lights, that's what it's about. And especially with we talked about the new Mustang Panther stadium that they have. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love Joe Willis. He's a great coach. He has building a foundation there in Colleyville. And I think the things that he's wanting to do with this program and where he's trying to take it, it's just taking him more time to get those. He needs the players to run his offense, and it's a fast-paced offense. They go vertical on everything there in Colleyville Heritage, but also their defense. And so just building that program, they have a ton of young talent, a running back that's going to be really good, and I just think it's just taking them time to build it. But, the Battle of the Red Rail, guys, it's heated.
We are just a week away. Yep, next Friday night.
It is heated.
Well, that's one of the reasons we played this interview this week.
There you have it.
It's because we're going to talk about that next week. By far, Grapevine, Colleyville Heritage. But it's always great catching up with Joe Willis and being able to just kind of hear the coach's aspect of things. We've got a couple more Coach Speaks coming for you throughout the 2019 season. We've got plenty of high school football in Week 8 to get to you here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue previewing around the DFW area, and then we're actually going to have a recruiting segment. How about this? Al Pops from USA Football joins the show. We'll catch up with Coach Al Pops and kind of talk about what it takes to be recruited nowadays from high school football to the next level. We'll hear all that and more when we return on Whataburger Friday Night Stars.
Gear up for back to sport at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
It's game day. A day that should be spent in the living room, not the kitchen. So next game, you just worry about the score, because we've got the food covered. With hand-battered, cooked-to-order, always fresh, never, ever frozen chicken fingers, craveable cane sauce, crispy crinkle-cut fries, and jugs of freshly made tea and lemonade. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love.
Go Cowboys!
It's in all of us, and we won't hold it back. Not one little bit. Nope, we embrace it, letting it fuel our passions, pushing us deeper than we thought possible and keeping us curious. It's what sets us apart from the herd. It's how we come up with the ideas that make people say, why didn't I think of that? See, when you nurture the creativity and passion that's in all of us, you'll learn nothing is out of reach.
Get excited, Whataburger fans. Our one-of-a-kind mushroom Swiss burger is back.
And now it's an all-time favorite.
If you love mushrooms, you're going to love this burger.
The double cheese, the mushrooms was absolutely amazing.
It's a really good balance between the mushrooms and the Swiss. And that au jus sauce on top.
The creamy au jus sauce.
It really complements the mushrooms. Everything just works perfectly together.
It's just perfect. Every bite's perfect.
It's not just a mushroom Swiss burger, it's a Whataburger mushroom Swiss burger.
here from the Star in Frisco. Quick peek inside the Dallas Cowboys locker room. Beautiful as always. Just a matter of yards here from where we sit inside the Star in Frisco. SWBC Mortgage Studios, Kyle Yeoman, Zach Wolcha, Heckma Harrison, and filling in for Eric Chiafalo, it's Guy Frazier. Always fun to have Uncle Fraz in the show. You can follow him on Twitter. He's always an entertaining Twitter follow. You can see him down there at the bottom. He's on the ticker right at the bottom of the show. So
he's tweeting while he's working.
Yeah, look at that. That's how it does. That's how he does. He's all over the place. He is Mr. Texas high school football for us anyways. Here for Friday Night Stars. Let's get to some more of these Week 8 matchups. We'll talk to Al Pops coming up here in the coming moments. But starting with Keller and Denton Guyer, 5-6A matchup. Two teams, one of which, Denton Guyer, 5-1, their lone loss coming to South Lake Carroll Dragons. And then you've got Keller, who's kind of been really would you say the third best team in that district? Is that too tough to say, or
I think that's fair for
right
reasonable?
in there? Yeah, right in that.
At
least in the conversation, and they're taking on Denton Guyer tonight. Is this an opportunity for Denton Guyer to kind of continue to prove themselves a little bit, or is this an opportunity for Keller to maybe make some noise in that district?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Keller, I think that they did claim that third spot with their big win over Eaton last week, 17-12. Now, they got dinged up in that game. Hayden Anderson and Enoch and Chobo, their outstanding running back, went down. So we'll see how healthy they are for the game tonight against Guyer, because they'll need all hands on deck if they want to compete with Eli Stowers and Kadrick Cobbs and Seth Metter in the offensive firehouse that Guyer is going to bring to the table here. But for Enoch and Chobo, this is one of the most physical runners in the area here. 457 yards, 3 touchdowns. He averages about 6 yards a carry when he touches the ball. Him and Cobbs together probably are one of the true inside downhill kind of bruising backs that you'll see in the area. But Hayden Anderson, a guy that also is a dual threat kind of quarterback. Now, when you look at Guyer, they obviously had that disappointing loss to South Lake Carroll. And last year, they dropped a couple of games at the end of the year within their district that they felt like, man, we shouldn't have lost those games. And Coach Walsh was quoted in the Denton Record Chronicle this week as saying, like, that's something that should be fresh in our kids' minds. And if it's not, I'll dang sure remind them. So he's keeping these kids focused. I think this is going to be a clinical business-like kind of game for Guyer. They're just a better football team, and I think they'll take care of business tonight, especially with Anderson, the starting quarterback for Keller, and in Chobo not at 100% full strength here tonight.
Yeah, Guyer has to play a little ticked off, Like you say, it was all good just a week ago, guys. Everybody was talking about Guyer and State, and I even jumped out of the cake and said they were going to be better than they're better than Longview, right? And I got a little stuff about that on Twitter when I said that, right? But I made some comments based off of their earlier games because I saw them just rolling through people. I think they have to get back to that. They have to get back to the way that they were rolling. They have to get back to that punishing ground game that they had, and I think South Lake, for all intensive purposes, showed everybody how to play Guyer. Now, everyone can't use that same recipe because if you try to do that, it'll get you beat by 100 points. But I believe that now Guyer is in a position to run the table in that district through the end of the year and also through the playoffs.
Well, there are a couple other teams that might make some noise in that district as well, and there's another matchup between two teams of that caliber in Northwest Eaton along with Keller Central as well tonight, sticking with 5-6A. And if you're looking at Keller Central, you're saying, 5-1, oh my gosh, why are they not in this conversation? They've still not necessarily proven themselves against top-notch competition, or is that too much to say at this point in the season?
No, you're spot on with that. I mean, but at the same time, we said it last week that Keller Central is a team that if they were not in that division, they'd probably be the toast of the town in that division. So they're just locked into it's just a battle. And so Keller Central is a good team that should win. I mean, Northwest Eaton as well. They've had their struggles through this season, but I give the nod to Keller Central in this game.
It'll be interesting to see. Central, I think, defensively is pretty solid, and they've done a nice job the last couple of weeks. They've won really close games against Byron Nelson and Fossil Ridge. They won by a combined 4 points in both of those. So they've proven, hey, if we can keep this low-scoring, a defensive field position kind of football game, using DJ Graham, who's an outstanding receiver, but really is kind of held back by the quarterback play there at Central, try and run the football, not turn it over. That's their kind of recipe to success there with Keller Central. Now, when you look at Eaton, I think they've got a little bit more talent on the offensive side of the football, but their defensive line has really carried them. So you've got two teams here that are fighting for probably that fourth spot within the district, and this is maybe a de facto elimination game. This is a playoff game here in Week 8, in my opinion, between Eaton and Central. Winner of this one probably claims that fourth spot within the district, and the loser might just be on the outside looking in come Week 10 once all the seeding and tiebreakers are taken down.
In terms of top four teams, we'll get to that in just a second, but in terms of top four teams with 5-6A, is that one of the toughest districts to find themselves into a playoff spot? And I was kind of leaning on you for this, guy.
Well, I mean, last year that fourth spot was hotly contested between Keller, Eaton, Fossil Ridge, and I actually got to see a lot of that district last year. It seemed like I saw Keller and Eaton like every other week. And Coach Strelo at Keller has really built a pretty solid program over there. So, yeah, I think, you've got Geyer and Southlake in those top two spots, but that 3 and 4 spot is kind of up for everybody to kind of compete for. And I think Timber Creek and some of those other schools have kind of fallen to the bottom a little bit, but it's still, nip and tuck there at the 3 and 4 spots. So, and I was going to bring up DJ Graham's actually a guy that's real versatile. He plays on the defensive side of the ball too, the Oklahoma commit. So he's quite the DB. And as far as Central, that's about all I know is DJ Graham. He's actually one of our Friday Night Stars top 25 recruits this offseason. So he's a pretty special guy.
Yeah, but to bring up the fact that Enoch Nchobo is hurt, that is going to make a big difference at that third spot because they lean heavily on him. If he can't go through the rest of the season, then that may open the door for Keller Central.
No, it will. And I guess Keller Central is kind of the outlier here because you look at Keller having knocked off Eaton, so they've got the tiebreaker in the head-to-head there. Then you're looking at Keller Central. So if Eaton knocks off Central here tonight, then you've really just got a muddying up of those three schools fighting for two spots.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch as things kind of start to unfold in District 5-6A. Before we get back to some of our Friday night matchups, do want to take a second and kind of shift gears, talk about some recruiting, and not talking about, hey, this guy's going to Oklahoma or this guy's going to Texas. Let's take a moment and talk about really kind of the recruiting scene in general. We've got Al Pops on the phone, our boy Al from USA Football. We had an opportunity to kind of talk with Al last year up in Canton, Ohio, and then here at the Star in Frisco as a part of the USA Football Middle School Bowl Game series that we've been a part of. And Al, first off, thanks for joining us here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars. Great to hear from you again, but man, it's definitely starting to ramp up a little bit, that recruiting time of the year in high school football.
Hey, guys, thank you very much for having me. It's good to talk to you guys outside of the summer months. But you guys are right. There's never really a time where that recruiting is off, but certainly it is ramping up right now as we get ready for Halloween and then turn into the holiday months, and then National Sign Day will be here before we know it.
Now, one of the big questions around recruiting, especially at the high school level, whenever you get into those upperclassmen years, and this is a common question around the area, what does it take to get recruited and to get noticed by some of those top-notch coaches from around the nation, even if you're getting into your upper years and your upperclassmen years of high school and you haven't necessarily gotten those looks before?
That's a little bit of a loaded question, just because there's, with social media and everything else, there's so many avenues for kids to kind of be discovered. The old excuse of, oh, I'm from a small school, nobody knows me, nobody cares, like that's out the window, right? So something I'll start with is you got to be as proactive as possible. Take control of your own recruiting. The best way I can describe it is anyone can watch any football game and pick out the best kid on the field. That doesn't take a lot of talent at all. But it's those kids, that second or third tier kid that have enough ability to go to the next level, what are those kids doing for themselves in order to go play college football? Are you reaching out to coaches or player personnel guys on Twitter? Is your Twitter clean? Is your Instagram clean? Those are little things where these guys can interact with you from hundreds and thousands of miles away without you officially going on campus and everything like that. But there's no reason that a kid from, let's say, New Jersey can't interact with a school from California just on social media. So you got to take control of your own recruiting. If you want to go to that next level, reach out to those coaches. Be proactive. Don't sit there and wait.
Pops, Zach Wolchuk with you. It's always great to hear your voice and catch up with you, man. Missed you. I know that you've got a lot of young kids. Brendan Storer comes to mind here locally, who's an emerging young quarterback that's probably going to go through the Highland Park system. You know, you get, and we've got a lot of young sophomore kids here in Texas and DFW that are outstanding quarterbacks here locally. When you get these kids that are starting to get looked at, you know, as young as even freshman, sophomore years in high school, and they come to you for advice, what's some of the advice that you give them as they move forward in being recruited, and schools are asking them and sending them letters and asking them to come and visit? You know, what's some of the advice that you help kind of clear their head during that whole process?
Yeah, great question. I mean, at no point do I ever call myself the expert or the guru, because there is no true blueprint for any of these kids. The things that I will say, though, to anybody who asks is, one, control what you can control. That means control what you're doing in the classroom, control what you're doing in the community, and control what you do on the football field. If you are acting up in class, if you're not getting grades, it sounds like just, you know, football speak, but those schools are definitely not going to come near you because of the way that you're acting. So you got to control what you can control. And really, this goes back to the first question, is just put yourself out there. Go to camps or events where college coaches are. There's a million just money grab camps out there that promise you the world. But if a college coach is not seeing you in person, I mean, it's going to be a lot harder for that offer or that interest to start to come. So you got to put yourself out there, and you got to take care of, you know, your basic stuff. Be a good guy, get good grades, perform well on the football field.
Hey, Al, Heckman Harrison here. Pleasure to meet you, sir. I got to ask you now, back in my day when I was recruited, which was a very, very long time ago, Al.
Long time ago.
Hey, it's a long. But hey, back when I was being recruited, none of these guys have ever gotten a free ride, plane ride in their life, so I don't worry about that. But the thing is that when it comes down to recruiting nowadays, I think it used to be 5 schools that you can go and visit. A lot of that has changed. What are the guidelines now that the NCAA has set for these guys, and how many schools can they actually go and visit now?
Hey, you know what? That's a great question. And again, I'm gonna say, go ahead and get clearance from your coaches at your school and your athletic director before you go and make any move. That would be my first piece of advice. But it is 5 unofficial or 5 official visits.
Same.
However, you still can go to any school that you'd like to. You know, you can reach out to the recruiting coordinator there, say, hey, I'd like to come check out campus. If there's a mutual interest, they're more than likely going to invite you. It's just going to be on your own dime. It's going to be on mom and dad's dime or coach's dime or however it's done for you to get there. But you do have 5 official visits where the school will pick up the tab for your stay and your travel there.
A lot of fun talking about the high school. Of course, you're a guy who's a national mindset sort of guy. I mean, you're USA football. You're from coast to coast. But is there something a little bit special about that Texas high school football that you've come to see over your time with USA football?
Absolutely, man. I mean, look at the NFL pedigree of quarterbacks and where a lot of talented kids come from. In fact, you brought up Brendan Storer before. I was talking with his father today. He's like, yeah, I have a 5th grader, Del Storer, coming up. He'll be with the USA football and the U.S. national team events next year. So it's kind of like it's inbred in these quarterbacks from Texas, or these football players from Texas, that, you know, we know we're very good players. And, you know, coming to events outside of your own community will kind of get you on that map a lot quicker. But, you know, yes, Texas, everyone thinks Texas is, you know, football in Texas is what you guys do. That and steaks, Harding barbecue.
There you go, Pops.
And Whataburger out there as well. I mean, you could throw a lot of things out there, but football is definitely up on the list. Al Pops from USA Football joining us here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars. Al, thanks so much for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again soon. We'll have to catch up come playoff time and chat things up again.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime you guys need me, I'm here. And, go Texas high school football, man. Nothing else like it.
There you go. Al Pops from USA Football joining us. Just a lot of fun talking about the exciting route that you can take. And there's so many different routes. Like you said, there's no blueprint in trying to get to the next level, especially from a recruiting standpoint, because it's so subjective sometimes.
No.
And you're frustrated sometimes. And you're finally figuring out, like, you're putting up massive numbers. One guy that comes to mind, Nick Carpin from Independence High School, one of the defensive linemen, he had 13 sacks going into last week, which is unreal. And I was kind of talking to him during practice, and I said, hey, you got any offers yet? And he goes, no, not yet, but I'm keeping hope alive. I want to play at the next level. And I was like, well, I mean, that's tough. I mean, that's a tough answer to hear from a guy, but there are so many different ways to get to that next level that's got to be encouraging to hear.
Well, there's so many different ways, and there's so many different levels at the next. A lot of kids, you see all the big games on Saturday, D1 and FBS level, but there's FBS, there's FCS, there's D2, there's D3, there's NAIA. Don't be afraid to go to a junior college or a community college if you need that extra 2 years to kind of progress as a player. So you can go play at the next level. It's what you're willing to go do and, what level you're willing to go play at. So, there's a lot of ways to get there, but there's a lot of options at the next level as well.
Yeah, and I feel for kids that have that, they're impatient because they want to blow their Twitter up and say, I'm blessed, thank the Lord for my offer from Ohio State University, and they don't come, right? And you have these kids, and I'll point to a Torrin Pittman is a kid that's not committed. It's not surely not because he's not being offered. It's just the fact that he hasn't committed to the school, and there are a lot of offers on the table. And then you have other kids, like I will point to my cousin, Evan Green, playing at Parish Episcopal, having a great year, leading the team in receptions, and not getting the offers that he wants, right?
He'll come.
And they will come. And so it's all about patience, but it's all about, like he said, like Pop said, controlling what you can control. Mm-hmm. And what you can control is going out there on Friday and balling like a dog.
Put that good film out there. Someone will find you.
Yeah, somebody's going to find you. USA Football on Twitter, by the way, and then you can follow Al Pops specifically. He's AL Pops USA FB, all caps, for the USA Football part of that Twitter handle. Now, moving on from, like you said, you mentioned him already, Evan Green and Paris Episcopal.
What do you call that?
A segue?
Segue.
How about this? How about a little bit better of a segue on the back end of my first segue, and the fact that we're going from talking to USA Football's Al Pops to a former USA Football quarterback in Preston Stone, leading that TAPS squad from Parish Episcopal, 5-1 on the year. 39 points per game, 404 total yards on average. I mean, this is a team in Parish Episcopal that puts up numbers, and a Bishop Lynch team that's kind of not necessarily lived up to expectations here in 2019.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well, it's been a tough year for Bishop Lynch, too, because, they had the awkward, kind of odd firing of Coach Fawcett in the spring, and then Coach Price, who I think came over from Liberty Christian.
Sounds right. And they had some transfers.
And they had some transfers. Some kids leave and go back to DeSoto and Cedar Hill and stuff like that.
Mesquite Horn.
Yeah, Mesquite Horn.
Jamal Crawford.
Yep. So, they've had some of that, but I don't know. Preston Stone's pretty dang good.
Preston Stone pretty dang good, I think. Is,
yeah. Come on. That's a safe thing to say.
You can start and stop there. Preston Stone's pretty darn good. The kid is pretty sensational. Yeah. Bishop Lynch's defense really is what carried them last year, and they've still got some solid linebackers. They graduated a couple of guys as well. Their front seven was really dominant, and the running game was strong with Jamal Crawford III. With him now gone, they've kind of been looking to find and establish a running game. I just think in this one, Parish's offense, and really ever since they kind of had that hiccup to Fort Worth All Saints a few weeks ago, I think that really kind of steadied and kind of got them in the right mindset. Like, look, we can't just show up and beat everybody in TAPS every week. We're not there yet. And ever since then, they've really been taking care of business. I think Bishop Lynch is just next on that path for Parish as they continue to just roll through TAPS on the way to the playoffs.
Yeah, Preston Stone he's doing it again. 1,400 yards, 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns. This kid last year, we didn't know his name, and then all of a sudden, 5 or 6 games in, we're like, who is this kid, Preston Stone? And he's just kind of backing that up with another solid junior year. I mean, he's in the area. He's like what we say. He's on the Mount Rushmore of young talent, young quarterbacks in North Texas. That's pretty big, Mount Rushmore.
We were looking at him saying that's a kid that could play on Sundays.
Yeah,
Man.
I mean,
he's got that kind of potential.
Well, what he does with his arm and also what he does with his legs. I mean, he is Mr. Everything for them. But also talking about my cousin Evan Green and. Superior route running ability. The kid is cat quick. He's my cousin.
No, but legitimately, they're related. They're blood relatives.
And he actually is legitimately really good.
Very good.
That's the thing is Heckman's a little biased because he's family, but at the same time he's speaking truth.
He's legit. Evan Green's the truth.
So thank you for co-signing on that.
Oh, absolutely.
But check the stat sheet.
Or the tape. I'm about checking the tape, and Evan Green he jumps out when you watch Parrish.
That.
I'll fact check that. I
Chuck.
did, and he's good. He's the real deal.
And Play Wyatt was the other kid I was trying to think of, who's back at McKinney Boyd now. He was a safety for Bishop Lynch last year and a big piece of their defense, so that's another loss. Anyway, that name was escaping me.
The one thing for Parrish is they've got a big date looming at PCA next week.
That's it.
So you worry about, those trap games. Are they looking ahead? I don't think that they are after they've already dropped a game to Fort Worth All Saints earlier in the year. But if Bishop Lynch is going to have a chance, they've got to have that defense emerge and play to the level in which their standard is at that school and that program. I just don't see it happen. I think Preston Stone's just way too good.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough matchup for Bishop Lynch tonight. Moving on back to the 6A level, we've got plenty of 6A to talk about. Plano East at Plano, the rivalry matchup that I know Zach Wolchuk is oh so close to, and it looks like this might be one that your Wildcats could come out on top in.
I hope so. 38th edition of the rivalry between Plano and Plano East. Plano leads the series 19-17-1. Last year they had what was a rather shocking victory as they blew out Plano East 41-19. It was a very heavy ball control kind of game. It came after Plano East had a disappointing loss to Allen. This year it's a pretty one-dimensional Panther squad over there. They really just they can't throw the football. I'm sorry to say it. They just don't have much of a passing game. It's all about Dylan Hayden. Dylan Hayden at quarterback. He's got 288 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns on the ground. But Trey Scott Jones is the end-all, be-all for that offense. Their outstanding running back who missed some time due to injury. He's got almost 400 yards on the ground. But that's what East wants to do. Their head coach, Joey McCullough, the brother of Plano's head coach, Jadon McCullough. So not only is it a legitimate crosstown rivalry, it's a sibling rivalry now, as this is the 4th year that those two brothers have coached against each other. But head coach Joey McCullough for Plano East said, you might as well say that we're already in the playoffs. They feel like if they can win this game tonight against Plano, they're right back in the mix for a playoff spot, and they have to. I mean, they're coming in 1-2. They've dropped some games here as of late, and Plano's coming off a big victory over McKinney, one that a lot of people didn't think that they'd be able to win. It snapped a 3-year streak against McKinney, and their offense is peaking right now at the right time. Oliver Towns is doing an excellent job of pushing the football down the field. They've got some really good wide receivers. When you look at Jaden Chambers and Nolan Williams, who are burners on the outside, but they can also run the football with Tylen Hines and then Cody Christ, who will play both ways, linebacker and running back for you. So for Plano, their defense has been susceptible. Therefore, I do think Plano East will be able to put up some points running the football at Trey Scott Jones. But overall, top to bottom, Plano should be the more complete football team in this game. But with these rivalries, when East and Plano get together,
never know.
You just never know.
Yeah, you never know. Oliver Towns, I think, makes a difference in this game for Plano. Plano East, just a down year. Last year, they had a bunch of team speed last year. But this year, a little bit different. They graduated a lot of guys, but what I called them last week, all over town. Oliver Town.
And East has been just turning the ball over like a machine. They had 4 turnovers last week in their loss. So this week, they've got, if they want to knock off Plano, they've got to make sure they take care of the football.
Well, and you said Plano was the more complete team, but they're also the more experienced team. I mean, Plano East returned 1 guy on each side of the ball this year, so 2 returning starters, and Trey Scott Jones being one of them. So I think they're a 1-5 team, and I think a lot of that's just due to lack of experience. So I think they're taking their lumps this season, and we'll have to just look down the road. But yeah, I think Plano's just a more complete, experienced team and probably should be the team that wins tonight.
Yeah, skipping ahead to Cedar Hill and Mansfield Lake Ridge, 7-6A, where Cedar Hill has kind of emerged again as one of the top contenders, whereas Lake Ridge has kind of fallen a little bit recently, and it's because of that defense and some tough matchups that Lake Ridge has saw. But want to kind of just talk about this game overall. I mean, the Longhorns have kind of shown that they mean business heading into the latter parts of the schedule, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Their win last week, I think, was a statement win, and
Huge.
that was when Heckma. I mean, you were waiting for it. You were looking like, hey, you're thinking Cedar Hill's living off the past, and I thought, all right, this is when the blue blood will step up and knock off Summit, and boy, did they.
Yeah, I was wrong. Well, I just start out by saying that I was wrong. I mean, Cedar Hill, they stomped them last week. Quint Bright is a guy that, like I said, the Texas Tech commit, super fast.
Yeah, lightning quick.
Super fast at what he's doing for Cedar Hill. But it's not only Cedar Hill's offense, it's what they're doing on defense. They completely shut down Summit last week. And Summit is a team that we were high on just based off of the points. And for my boy Eric, the point differential. So we were going off a lot of that, and they were leading in the point differential.
Don't tell Eric this, but when you don't play tough opponents, it's going to skew your.
But I won't tell Eric that at all. But you know, the kid Salter, the quarterback for. What's his name? Caden Salter is a dog, and he showed it last week. But with Quinn Bright and just based off of the schedule that they had, they played a ton of tough opponents at the beginning of the season. But Cedar Hill looks to be rolling right now.
They are, and Adrian Hawkins and Mansfield Lake Ridge have kind of taken some lumps this year. A team that you graduated Charles Rogers, who is an outstanding quarterback now at Southern Miss, but they've really just been a quarterback factory in terms of just graduating guys that put up crazy stats and then go on and play at D1. It might not be the elite D1 schools, but heck, Southern Miss is a solid program within Conference USA. So Adrian Hawkins seemed like he was the next guy to slide in, and statistically he's right there. I just think they've declined a little bit on the defensive side of the football, and ultimately I think Cedar Hill will be able to run the ball on Lake Ridge here tonight. But this is one of those must-win games. Within that District of Doom, last year Lake Ridge was able to win the close games. They knocked off DeSoto in a tight battle. Their game against Cedar Hill was close last year. So, this is a big one for Lake Ridge in terms of who needs this one more. It's without a doubt Lake Ridge, but I just think Cedar Hill to this point is playing better football.
Well, it's just been an odd year. Lake Ridge really started off hot, getting a win over Kyle's Midway team down in Waco, I believe, as well.
It was.
And they got spanked by DeSoto.
Right, and then they're kind of right there at the start of district play. They lost their defense coordinator, Billy Smith, to cancer, who passed away, unfortunately. So it's been kind of a weird season for that program. But I think replacing Chandler Rogers has proven to be a little bit harder for them at the quarterback spot. And then I don't know. I mean, Addison MacArthur was another leader on defense. I think they lost some guys to graduation that I think they thought they could replace a little bit more smoothly, and that hasn't happened. And so you've seen some inconsistency. And as far as DeSoto, and you talking about Caden, he's really kind of steadied the ship at the quarterback spot for the Longhorns, which has kind of been inconsistent the last couple of seasons. So I'm kind of curious to see what Cedar Hill looks like as we get further into the season because of him.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch for Cedar Hill, no doubt about it. Moving forward, keeping with 7-6A, you mentioned that Mansfield Summit squad. They've got a pretty tight ball game tonight against South Grand Prairie on the road at the Gopher Warrior Bowl. And South Grand Prairie, another team that's a little bit hot right now. Summit trying to rebound after their blowout loss last week to Cedar Hill. Is this an opportunity to kind of get back on track if you're the Jags?
It's a bad time to need one.
It's a tough game to do it.
Yeah, I will tell you. I will say this. I mean, Summit. When you look at their schedule and you talk about them as a team, hadn't faced a lot of tough teams at the beginning of their season. Now, when they get into the meat of it, you're seeing them take their lumps against the Cedar Hills. Tonight, they come up against an SGP team that is tough. I mean, and 4-2 SGP. They've dropped a few games, but Drizzy Drake Logan, my guy, another ism. And also SGP's defense with Milt Pfeiffer and Gerald Catchy, really good, man. And this is a this is a really tough game to try and just say, all right, this team has the upper hand over the other, looking at the schedule in the District of Doom, because you want to see them both against Cedar Hill just to see how they fare, to at least make a fair assessment of both teams. But I just give it to SGP simply because of the fact that they play you to the end.
Yeah, they absolutely.
And
do.
I think SGP had a statement win against Lake Ridge, the team we were just talking about a few weeks ago, which is somewhat Summit's offense is better than what Lake Ridge is up to this point. We have McKinney at quarterback, and then Lott, who's kind of another wide receiver, running back, kind of dual threat athlete there on the outside. Summit can put up points, but SGP's defense, man, in this one, they come to play, and you're right, Heckman, that could make the difference. I've been looking at SGP and not really sure what to think of them because they are so one-dimensional. Logan has to be successful or their offense doesn't play well, but for their defense is just so good it can carry them. And the jury's still out on Summit a little bit. This is a big game for Summit. If they want to prove that they're legit, they were kind of everybody's darling. It's a down year for the Mansfield schools. They were the one team that people were looking at. All right, they're undefeated. Well, then they got spanked by Cedar Hill. How do they rebound and go on the road to beat SGP?
That's going to be such a tough district overall. I mean, 7-6A, and we just mentioned Cedar Hill, Lake Ridge, also with Mansfield Summit and South Grand Prairie. I mean, looking at the standings overall, DeSoto is the cream of the crop right now. Then you've got a jumble right in the middle. The Cedar Hills, the South Grand Prairies, Mansfield Summit, but you've also got Mansfield, Lake Ridge on the outside looking in. They play Cedar Hill this week. I don't know if this is going to be the week to maybe try and make a jump in that category. And then even looking at Mansfield and Waxahachie, who have shown flashes this season, but just haven't necessarily put it all together. District 7, 6A, that District of Doom.
That's a tough one. I mean, just looking at the top
4 spots there.
That's it. And I mean, top to bottom, you're looking at about 6 teams that are legitimate playoff teams.
And doesn't get easier. Summit's got DeSoto next week, and then they'll have Waxahachie, a game that one should win. But back to back, you've got SGP and DeSoto. That's tough, man.
Yeah, that's going to be a gauntlet to be short with. And you
physical
mentioned
teams too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a ball club that can put up points in Mansfield Summit. There's another one down that's at the 6A level in the Fort Worth side, Weatherford. 52 points per game, and they're going up against a defensive-minded Trinity Trojans. This might be my favorite matchup of the night. I'm really excited about this one.
I'm excited too because we saw Trinity lose to Holtham last week. And Weatherford is a team that can put some pressure on the Trojans. When you talk about their ability to put up points, you see there they come in averaging 52 points a game. Now, I understand they haven't exactly played against a ton of elite defenses. Right. Trinity is really the only team that plays defense consistently within this district. But they beat Holtham pretty darn good, put up 66 on them, a team that Trinity just lost to. Now, they didn't have A.J. Barnett, their starting running back in that game. I'm not sure on his health coming into this one. But Trinity, you know what they want to do. They want to run the football. They want to keep Weatherford's offense off the field, make this a shorter game, control the clock, control the tempo. Weatherford's just one of those teams where they can score in 1 or 2 play drives. And for Trinity, you can go ahead and do that, but if they're going to be able to get behind you and have success with Seals at quarterback, look out. I think this is going to be fun and maybe a Weatherford team. Back-to-back losses for the Trinity Trojans within district play is somewhat unheard of. Weatherford has a chance. The Kangaroos on the road. It's going to be tough to win at Pennington Field, but I think that they've got a shot tonight.
Yeah, kangaroo meat for the Trojans tonight. Just come on, guys. The defense of Trinity, the offense of Trinity, like you said, you touched on this before, is going to keep that offense off of the field because you know what they're going to commit to, and that's running the football. And that's what we hadn't seen if Weatherford can actually stop the run. And so that's going to be a big part of this game. And we know the Kangaroos, like you said, they score in bunches. They put up a bunch of points. But Euless Trinity last week, guys, just ran into a buzzsaw with the Buffaloes, and the Buffaloes were ready to go in that game. And so this is one of those games that I'm looking forward to, but I just don't see Weatherford scoring 50 points tonight. Not at all.
It's going to be tough to do. I mean, that's a defense for Trinity that does not give up points.
You think Trinity can match that?
Ooh.
I
think they could.
But here's the thing,
even
though,
30.
on all that. is Trinity's going to cut this game in half like they do every time.
Right.
Because they just want to run the ball. And so when Weatherford does get the ball, they're going to have to be really efficient. And I always say that's the game plan to beating Trinity is you have to be efficient. So they're going to have to make some big splash plays. We'll see if Ken Seals can do it.
And I mentioned how this was one of my favorite games of the night. We've got one more highlighted game to get to really quickly before predictions. And this might have been your favorite game of the night, Guy.
You're supposed to be at this one.
Hosting Salina at the 4A level, 7-4A Division I. You were going to be here. Right. Instead, you're in studio with us. But this is a top-notch matchup at the 4A level.
Yeah, it's big time. It's big for that district, especially with Argyle and Paris and some of those other Anna, another team that's in that district. But this is a big one for playoff positioning. And, I got to be honest with you. I don't know a ton about this Salina team other than their record going into this. But I was kind of curious to see what they looked like during this time of the year come playoff here just in a couple weeks. But
Salina time?
Salina time, maybe, But
it's whenever it hits the clock.
That's what they call it, Salina time.
I wanted to see Brendan Lewis, the Colorado commit at quarterback for Melissa, and then Jabray Young, their running back. They've got some really good playmakers over there. So I was kind of curious to see what they looked like. I was supposed to see them back in week 2 against TCA Cedar Hill, or TC Cedar Hill. Didn't happen, and it didn't happen this week. So maybe it's just not meant to be with the Melissa Cardinals and myself this year. But I think that's a really good game for that district. And Argyle and Paris take on each other tonight as well. So some big games going on up in the northern part of the DFW area.
Well, you know what Salina wants to do, run the football with Logan Point. Logan Point is absolutely brilliant, one of the more underrated running backs we've got in the area.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one, and I'm glad you're in studio with us, but I am sorry that you ended up not going
I just wanted to try
one.
the press box eat.
See, and that's one thing we were requesting.
It's big time there.
We were requesting credentials, and the guy goes, "Oh, make sure and get them here early because it's good eating inside the press box."
Which, if you can find good press box eats, that's prime time.
That's a hashtag.
That's a hashtag.
Prime time.
Hashtag press box eats.
Let's go to predictions, shall we? And
talk about it. Be about it.
Heckman did not have the best week last week. 1-4 puts him down to third place in our prediction standings. I'm up at the top. That's not updated. 27-11 is where I am. Zach is in second with 26-12. Heckma at 25-13, and then Eric rounds us out at 24-14.
He's always in the back somewhere.
He's in the back somewhere. He's not here now.
I'm not going to count on that.
Before we go to this, and we've got to be quick with this because we're definitely going to run over time.
One-word answers. I got you.
Arlington Martin at Arlington, and I want to kind of proceed this a little bit.
Give me Martin.
Well, no. Let's be serious here for a split second. Former player of Coach Wager, A.J. Castaneda, a Grand Prairie police officer, was killed in the line of duty last week. And Coach Wager, of course, very close with all of his former players. They're going to honor him tonight in a pregame ceremony that I believe is happening right now. Of course, Mallory Hartley is at that game. We'll try and get some images from that ceremony. But tonight, special made jerseys donated by BSN Sports are going to be sold for $100 a piece at the game to raise money to help cover the cost of sending, I believe, his daughter to a special school, and she's also going to be an honorary captain for the game featuring tonight's Arlington Martin and Arlington Colts squad. So
I know Bowie canceled their games last night. There was some discussion, would they cancel their game tonight? I believe they're playing against Fort Worth Trimble Tech. We'll have to monitor that one moving forward, but certainly a great sign by Arlington ISD and Martin and Arlington, just kind of putting, of course, the rivalries aside and honoring there.
Definitely a nice gesture and something that we definitely are with our thoughts and prayers are with the Castaneda family, and a great gesture and what makes Texas high school football great. So with that being said, let's pick this game. And since I'm on top, Chris Bean kind of called me out this week and said, hey, if you're leading the standings, you've got to pick first. So I'm going to pick first, and I'm going to pick Arlington Martin to take this one from the Colts. I think the Colts fall twice in a row, but I think this is going to be a good football game. Zach, who you got?
Shouldn't have jumped out and said Martin so
quickly. You shouldn't have, right? That he was going to go with
He was going to go with Arlington.
Yeah.
I'm taking Martin. I just think their defense is even better than Bowie's, and Bowie's gave that Arlington offense some fits. I'm going to take Zach Mundell to do some magic. I'll go with the Martin.
Going with Chris Sims, I got to have it.
I love that. I do love Chris.
Arlington?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Martin. Castaneda story tonight, New Jersey's, yes! Coach Wager. It just seems like a good prime, Martin Warrior win.
That's going to be a fun one overall. Flower Mound on the road against Hebron. Of course, we talked to Doug Anderson about this one earlier. It's the Texas 21 game of the week. Actually, let's pick Plano East and Plano first. Let's go with, I'm going to go with Plano in this one.
Do you even have to ask him?
Yeah. Yeah, are you going to go with Plano East?
Plano.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going Plano.
Okay.
Yeah, Plano. Their win over McKinney a couple weeks ago really impressed me.
That was big.
It's big, yeah.
All right, so Plano across the board in that one. Moving on to our next matchup, Flower Mound and Hebron. Texas 21 game of the week. Doug Anderson was on the phone earlier. I'm going to take Flower Mound to take care of business, even on the road against the Hebron Hawks. This is going to be a good football game, and I talked with Ladarian McClain about this earlier. I think this is going to be one of those games that could be just something wild happening at the end. I think that's what this is kind of shaping up to be, but I think Flower Mound gets it done.
I think you're onto something. Hebron likes to take people to the woodshed. That's what they call their home stadium, the woodshed there. And weird things do tend to happen
at Hawk Stadium,
at Hawk Stadium for Hebron games. But I'm going to take Flower Mound. One, my beautiful girlfriend Jillian is a Flower Mound grad. I got to take Flower Mound for just making sure
that
just points at
I don't get in trouble at home. But I do think the Jags' offense is just too good.
I'm going Flower Mound as well.
Yeah, Flower Mound, Pierce Hudgens, Blake Short. I saw Hebron earlier this year. The offense is kind of inconsistent at times. I'm rolling with the Jags.
Okay, and we're also going to go with Wiley and Rowlett. This is a tough one.
This is a curveball.
I'm gonna go with Rowlett in this one. I mean, I think you look at Rowlett overall, and that's a ball club at 3-3 against Wiley, who has kind of been, like you said, a curveball overall this season.
Yeah.
That's kind of been Wiley. I'm gonna take Rowlett in this one, but it's gonna be close.
Yeah, Wiley's just a tough team to pick. If this were at home at Pirate Stadium, I think I'd rock with Wiley. But this one now going on the road to Rowlett, I'll go with Alex Rout and company. They're coming in hot. They've won 3 straight district games after starting 0-3. I'll rock with Rowlett at home.
Amo.
Ooh,
Wiley.
Amo, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw Wiley a couple weeks ago. And I'm gonna go with Rowlett. I'll just
not impressed by any means.
Okay. Yeah, not the some of the Alamo teams of the past.
Their running back Trey Sheffield might be banged up for this one, so that's something to look at.
That was the thing is he injured his shoulder in that game, and pretty bad was my understanding. So if that's the case, I think it's even more Rowlett. So give me the Eagles.
Okay. And then our final pick'em of the week: Mansfield Summit on the road against South Grand Prairie. I'm gonna take South Grand Prairie at home at the Gopher Warrior Bowl. I wanted to go Summit here, but I can't necessarily do it after last week.
If you wanted to, you should have. Have some cojones.
But no, I'm going to go
I'm
with
taking SGP.
Okay.
Their defense is outstanding.
That's all of that.
Drake Logan. I think Kyle should have taken Summit, but I'm going with SGP. Heckma's turned me to the SGP side.
Chip it. Drizzy Drake, baby. Yeah. I'm going with him all day.
Yeah, I'm going to go South, that 2021 class with Marcel McDuffie, Demekio Nathan, Caitlin
Marcel
Robinson.
McDuffie?
Yeah, is that how I said that? Yeah.
No, that's how we say it.
Is that how y'all say it? Well, yeah, they're talented. And I don't know. I think Summit's kind of taking care of the softer part of their schedule. We'll see what they do with this gauntlet that they're in right now. And I like the Warriors.
Like the Warriors.
Hey, Kyle, before you cut us off, I want to show some love.
Like 5 minutes overtime.
I want to show some love. We always give offensive love. I want to give some defensive love to the safety from Haltom, Johnny Smith Ryder. Last week Ryder. He had 14 tackles, 1 strip sack fumble, 62-yard fumble return, and an interception. Johnny Smith Ryder. We got to say his name. Right. We got to show him some love. Last week he did that, man.
We'll get him to
not
text
get Eric's
it.
picks?
No, we'll text him and get it
I think
done.
he should just go 0-5.
No, we're not. With the day that he has, he should go 5-0.
He should go 5-0.
It should be.
Yeah.
Maybe 2-3.
Yeah, we'll see. It's been fun though.
Ruthless.
Here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars, our kickoff show has come to a close. It's time to play the ball games. It's week 8 of Texas high school football. Thanks for joining us here from the Star in Frisco. We'll be back at 9 o'clock. 9 to 11. Be sure to join us on Overtime. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Vimeo. Also on the Star in Frisco's Facebook and Twitter. Follow us on Friday Night Stars. We'll be back at 9 o'clock. Until then, for Zach Wolchuk, Heckma Harrison, Guy Frazier, and I'm Kyle Yeomans. We'll see you later tonight.